Chapter 435. Suddenly, he couldn't pull the trigger of his pistol. His heart sank. Damn it! The gun is stuck. Is there something wrong with it? Damn it! I'm done for. I'm going to be captured alive by the Japanese. While he was still in shock, a few Japanese mocked him for being a coward for not having the guts to shoot. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. Ji Gang, you are a true warrior who dares to live in humiliation for your dreams. You are a coward who seeks death. As soon as this voice fell, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Song Ji Gang only saw a flash of black light. Puff! 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 Shinichi Kudo and the other two Kudo Kai masters were pierced through their chests by the black light. They fell to the ground in spurts of blood. Under Jiang Tian's spiritual consciousness, nothing in the entire Azura Street could hide from him. The black iron shuttle and the black flying sword turned into two black lights, and pierced through those cutting society's elite fighters one by one, as easily as crushing dry weeds. Suddenly, screams and screams were heard. The thick smell of blood instantly shrouded the entire Azura Street. Countless Chinese people who were in danger couldn't believe their eyes as they watched the East Asian people who had been killing and looting fall one after another under the two flashing dark lights as if they were being harvested by the scythe of the Grim Reaper. What? Everyone from the Kudo Kai has been killed. What's going on? We can't contact Shinichi Kudo. Those damn Huaxia pigs. We can't contact the three Kendo masters either. Many Japanese police officers on both ends of the street exclaimed in shock. Go in and arrest them. The leader of the police, Hashimoto Takaichi, roared in exasperation. That Huaxia martial arts master had been burning and looting in Japan, and had killed the grand priest of Nomiya Shrine, Anpei Yashihei in Fukuoka. Many high-ranking officials, leaders of tycoons, cultural celebrities, and powerful cultivators in Honshu were furious and scolded the police for being incompetent. Hashimoto Takaichi and the others had no guts or ability to deal with Jiang Tian, so they could only gather the Cutting Kai and other organizations to invade and harass the Chinese community. They wantonly smashed and burned, making their presence known and appeasing the anger of the upper class. It could be said that the Fukuoka police no longer turned a blind eye to the actions of many Japanese organizations to destroy the Chinese community. Instead, they personally instigated, organized, supported, and even plotted against them. The fucking gang was a Chinese gang that was hated by the Japanese upper class. The Azura Street was the stronghold that the fucking gang had operated in Fukuoka Prefecture for decades. It was a symbolic area of influence. Hashimoto Takaichi had been planning this operation for a long time, and he even invited several kendo masters to help him. Their goal was to borrow the strength of kendo experts and organizations like the Cutting Kai to wipe out the fucking gang in one fell swoop and kill them on the spot. This was because there was no death penalty in Japan. Hashimoto Takaichi had invited many experts and made thorough preparations. He originally thought that this operation would be a success. Who would have thought that the Kudo society would be completely annihilated after just a few minutes? This was a setback and loss that he could not accept. All members of the illegal fucking gang, lay down your weapons and surrender. Otherwise, we will kill you immediately. Whoosh! Teams of Japanese police officers, armed with explosion-proof shields and assault rifles, moved steadily into the street under the cover of explosion-proof vehicles. Damn it! These Japanese are despicable. Brothers, let's retreat quickly. Song Ji Gang shouted into the walkie-talkie. Brother Gang, I'm afraid we can't do it. There are too many police officers, and all the passages and secret passages are blocked. One of the brothers exclaimed. Brother Gang, what should we do? The enemy's firepower is very strong. With just our few guns. One of the brothers lost confidence. Even so, we can't surrender. Charge out. At this moment, Song Ji Gang didn't have time to think about the two black lights. He was shocked when he heard the words, and he knew that this was bad. The Japanese police wanted to wipe them out in one fell swoop. This was discussed with the Kutenkai. No, brother gang, we can't hold on. The enemy's vitality is too strong. Parrot is already dead. His brothers were being suppressed by the police, and they retreated to the middle of the street. They were about to be killed by the Japanese police. Just when Song Jigang's heart was filled with despair and panic, an explosion suddenly sounded out. It was as if a dozen grenades had exploded at the same time. A surging wave of air pushed out from the Yangqing Flavor restaurant. The shutter door, the wall, and the floor-to-ceiling windows shattered in an instant. The broken pieces of iron, glass, and bricks immediately turned into the sharpest and fiercest shrapnel, blasting the dozens of policemen outside the door and sending them flying 10 meters away. The 3 explosion-proof vehicles that weighed more than a few tons were like toy cars that were casually thrown out by a naughty child. They flew 5 or 6 meters into the air and rolled out lightly. With a few clangs, they smashed into the opposite building and broke into pieces, turning into scrap metal. Under this unstoppable force, whether it was the riot shield or the bulletproof vest, they were all shattered like pieces of paper. All the police officers were bleeding from their orifices in an instant. They died an unnatural death, and they didn't even have time to scream. What? This? Is this a weapon of mass destruction? This power. It's too terrifying. The police officers in the distance all stood there like clay sculptures, looking at the Yangqing Flavor restaurant in horror. Clang! 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 They were so scared that they dropped their guns and shields. What the fuck, even Song Jigang and the other heroes of the fucking gang were shocked and dumbfounded. They all looked at the entrance of the restaurant. Kang Tae-chu is here. Who dares to act rashly? Following a cold, emotionless, and dignified shout, a tall and dignified figure stepped out from the ruins of the restaurant. At this time, Jiang Tian had the appearance of the gunmetal divine body. He was as handsome as a god, and his white clothes were like dust. He looked otherworldly. Oh my god, it's that Hua Xia guy. The peerless expert who killed High Priest Anpei Jiping. In an instant, the remaining dozens of Japanese police officers were scared out of their wits. Some of them had participated in the bloody battle at the Mangrove Wharf and knew what Jiang Tian looked like. The terrifying scene of Jiang Tian lifting a 10-ton container and smashing hundreds of police officers to death in an instant had been deeply imprinted in their minds. It was a nightmare that they could never erase. At this time, they didn't dare to face Jiang Tian. Run! Where's the car? Come and help us quickly. The devil has appeared. Bang! 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 Many Japanese police officers fired at Jiang Tian while running away. They screamed and ran for their lives as if there was a prehistoric Tyrannosaurus Rex chasing after them. They were so scared that they almost peed their pants. They only hated that their parents didn't give them an extra pair of legs. You still want to shoot? Do you want to die? Jiang Tian snorted and waved his hand. 2 black lights burst out and rushed toward the Japanese police officers. Damn, is he my college classmate, Jiang Tian? My classmate can't be so fierce. Song Jigang recognized that the black lights that bloomed from Jiang Tian's fingers were the 2 black lights that killed Shinichi Kudo and the others. For a moment, he was horrified and couldn't believe it. When Jiang Tian's little black flying sword and black iron shuttle continuously killed the Japanese police officers. The police officer leading the team, Hashimoto Takaichi, had already gotten into the police car and fled. Now, he just wanted to escape from this place. As for the life and death of the police officers and how the Japanese higher-ups would deal with him in the future, they didn't care at all. In his opinion, even if it was life imprisonment, death, or even death by 1,000 cuts, it was much better than falling into the hands of that Hua Xia monster. But he was very depressed. Didn't this Hua Xia monster live in Ishii Yurin's villa? And the police had been secretly monitoring him. They didn't notice that they went out at all. How did they suddenly come to the Azura Street? Just as Hashimoto Takaichi rushed out for 3 kilometers and finally breathed a sigh of relief, a shaky Japanese suddenly sounded in his ears. "Your Excellency's speed is really too slow. Why don't you give me your head and let me report to my brother Chu?" Hashimoto Takaichi was shocked and subconsciously stepped on the brakes. A few dozen meters in front of him, a black shadow flashed, and a young man with a bun on his head appeared. The young man crossed his arms and stood upright like a javelin. There was a toothpick in the corner of his mouth and a bright smile on his face. "You are..." Hashimoto Takashi instantly recognized that the young man was another freak from Huaxia. He cursed inwardly and quickly turned the steering wheel, stepped on the accelerator, and wanted to turn around and leave. However, the young man opened his mouth and spat out the toothpick between his teeth. The speed of the toothpick was faster than lightning. The bulletproof glass of the police car, which was harder than steel, was useless. With a loud bang, the glass shattered one after another. The next moment, Hashimoto Takaichi felt a sharp pain in his forehead. His consciousness blurred, and his hands and feet spasmed violently. The car hit the barrier and died of suffocation. Dugu Xiao walked over lazily with a playful smile on his face. With a wave of his hand, a crescent-shaped cold light flashed down. Blood splattered everywhere. At this time, Azura Street was in a mess. Corpses were strewn everywhere, and the smell of blood filled the air. Severed limbs and blood stains were everywhere. Azura Street is really worthy of its name this time. Some shop owners and customers poked their heads out and said in disbelief. He's Master Kong." Yu Fuwang and the others stood far away and looked at Jiang Tian with shock and fear. They felt that he was like a demon god, and they didn't dare to get close to him. Thinking about how they had a meal with Jiang Tian just now, their legs and stomachs cramped. Especially Yu Fuwang. Thinking about how he had disrespected Master Kong again and again, he shrank back like a quail. Only Song Jigang, who led a few young men from fucking gang, boldly stepped forward and knelt in front of Jiang Tian. With reverence and worship, he said, "Disciple Song Jigang of fucking gang greets Master Kong." The boss of fucking gang, Su Yi, was Hua Qingtian's disciple. Hua Qingtian was the disciple of Master Kong, a member of the Heaven Alliance. Strictly speaking, all the disciples of fucking gang were Jiang Tian's disciples. "Ji Gang, you can still treat me as your university classmate. You don't have to be so polite," Jiang Tian said with a warm smile and stretched out his hands to help Song Jigang up. "I don't dare. Let me talk while kneeling. I'll feel more comfortable," Song Jigang said with a bitter face. Chapter 436. "Then, sit down." Jiang Tian smiled helplessly and pulled him into a Sichuan tea house that hadn't been destroyed yet. Sometimes, appearing as Kong Teichu always made him lose a lot of fun. He originally wanted to use Jiang Tian's appearance to get Song Jigang to bring him and Dugu Xiao to Kabuki-cho to criticize the decadent lifestyle of capitalist society. He was afraid that he couldn't do it now. The boss trembled as he served a few cups of tea. He didn't dare to show his face at all and just stood by the counter, trembling. Song Jigang also felt uncomfortable and didn't dare to sit down. Most of his buttocks were hanging out of the chair. The rest of the fucking gang didn't dare to sit down at all and stood respectfully behind Song Jigang. "Come, let me take a look at your wound." Jiang Tian took out the healing powder and helped him apply it. He smiled and said, "Jigang, go back and tell your boss, Su Yi, that I'm a lazy person. I didn't know that your fucking gang had suffered so much in Japan and bled so much. Firstly, I want to thank you, and secondly, I'm very sorry. Ji Grandmaster Jiang, to be able to work for you, even if we have to sacrifice our lives, climb a mountain of blades, or dive into a sea of fire, we won't regret it." Hearing Jiang Tian's words, Song Jigang was so moved that tears flowed down his cheeks. He choked and trembled. What ability did he have to let Grandmaster Jiang personally apply medicine to his wounds, and let Grandmaster Jiang thank him? It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he wouldn't even blink if he was asked to die for Jiang Tian. We're willing to serve Master Kong. Master Kong, don't stand on ceremony. It's our honor. The other fucking gang members were also moved to tears. Their blood was boiling, and they were so moved that they couldn't even speak clearly. They couldn't wait to kill a few more Japanese and make them perform well. Before this, I didn't even know that you were my disciples. Old Hua and the others also knew that I was lazy and didn't dare to disturb me with your matters. Jiang Tian treated their wounds one by one and said with a smile, I want to thank all of you. Not only are you brave and good at fighting and not disgracing the reputation of the Heavenly Alliance, but you have also protected many of our comrades. Master Kong, compared to your heroic feats, we're nothing. When everyone heard this, they were beaming with joy and could not hide their ecstasy. They were happier than if they had won a lottery worth tens of millions. Their hearts were sweeter than if they had drunk honey. In their hearts, Master Kong was a high and mighty idol, a god in the clouds. They worshipped him fervently, but felt that he was too far away. Not to mention being personally bandaged by Jiang Tian and receiving such an evaluation from Jiang Tian, just being able to meet Jiang Tian was enough for them to brag in front of their brothers for the rest of their lives. After a while, Jiang Tian applied the powder on their wounds. Everyone felt their wounds itch. When they looked down, they saw that they were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were stunned and their respect for Jiang Tian increased. Jiang Tian said with a smile, however, don't worry. I won't let your blood be sacrificed in vain. In the future, you will lead the fucking gang to dominate the entire East Asia. Yamaguchi-gumi and Inagawa-kai will all be yours. Those who are not of my race will have different intentions. No matter what, Ishii Yulian was still a East Asian, not to mention that she wanted to betray him. How could Huaxia be at ease? Not killing Ishii Yulian and letting her be a puppet was already a great mercy. This, Master Kong, we will never forget your great kindness. Song Jigang and the others were stunned for a full 3 seconds. They were filled with disbelief and then knelt down one after another. If someone else said this, Song Jigang would definitely think that it was nonsense. You want to take down Yamaguchi-gumi? Why don't you go to heaven? But when these words came out of Jiang Tian's mouth, it was different. Who was Jiang Tian? He was a peerless expert that defeated the East Asian experts. He was the #1 martial arts expert in Huaxia. If he could win the pinnacle battle 3 days later, then Master Kong would be invincible in East Asia. At this moment, they were filled with gratitude towards Jiang Tian. Yamaguchi-gumi and Inagawa-kai were the strongest societies in East Asia. The benefits were immeasurable. It could be said that Jiang Tian's words allowed them to reach a height that they could never imagine in their lifetime. They chatted for another half an hour. Ishii Yulian rushed in and knelt on the ground. He said with a face full of shame, Master Kong, my guards are late. Please forgive us. Damn, isn't this Ishii Yulian? As expected, Master Kong even took down Yamaguchi-gumi's leader. I'm afraid that Inagawa-kai and the other organizations won't be able to hold on. Seeing Ishii Yulian kneeling in front of Jiang Tian, everyone was shocked when they recognized her identity. Do I need your guards? Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, Sasaki Kaisha is now the president of Sakura Kai. Contact him for me. Yes. Ishii Yulian quickly waved his hand and asked his assistant to contact Sasaki Kaisha. Tokyo Ginza was a commercial center on par with Paris Champs-Élysées and New York's Fifth Avenue. In East Asia, if Mount Fuji and Kyoto symbolized nature and history, then Tokyo Ginza symbolized East Asia's modernity. There were all kinds of modern department stores and commercial complexes. The headquarters of Panasonic, Mitsui, and Mitsubishi, which were second to none in Japan, were located in this area. There were also many exquisite restaurants, bars, and nightclubs hidden in the middle. Sakura Building, a large conference room on the top floor. The room was elegantly furnished. An abstract Sakura flag hung on the wall. This was the Sakura Kai's headquarters. Sasaki Kaisha, who had flown back to the Sakura Kai's headquarters in a helicopter, sat at the head of the table like a high and mighty empress. Below her, many high-ranking officials of the local Metropolitan Police Department, masters of various sects, Grand Onmyoji, and leaders of many conglomerates were gathered for a meeting. Now, the Chinese gathering area has been destroyed. 123 people have died. This can be considered as revenge for the heroes who died around the Senkaku Islands. A high-ranking official of the Metropolitan Police Department said with a smile. Kang Tae-chu provoked our Huaxia. Let his compatriots suffer for him. You can't blame East Asia. You can only blame them for bleeding the same blood as Kang Tae-chu. Many members of East Asia's upper-class society laughed coldly. It was as if those Huaxia people who died tragically in the chaos were just ants and dust. It did not affect them at all. Those Chinese are just despicable pigs. They don't deserve to live in East Asia. Mitsui Takori shouted. I've already fired all the Chinese people in the Mitsui Group's companies. This is only the beginning. Sasaki Kaisha's face was filled with murderous intent. She said coldly and viciously, many overlords of the Sakura Kai will also be sent to Huaxia to wreak havoc. A debt of blood must be repaid with blood. Below the stage, there was a wave of praises, buzzing like flies. My fiancée is really a heroine. With her help, the Matsushita family will become even more powerful in the future. And a handsome, tall, elegant young man was looking at Sasaki Haisha with burning eyes. His name was Matsushita Kudai, one of the heirs of the Matsushita family. He was also Sasaki Kaisha's fiancé. Just like the upper-class society in Huaxia, dignitaries, businessmen, and martial arts families were working together to make up for their shortcomings. A purely dignitaries or businessmen without the help of martial arts forces would be like a fat lamb that would be torn to pieces by the powerful forces. It would be difficult for them to go far. At this moment, an assistant holding a mobile phone walked behind Sasaki Kaisha, bent down, and whispered something. Her expression changed slightly, then she reached out and took the phone. She smiled and said, Master Kong, what can I do for you? Stop all activities against the Chinese community in East Asia immediately. Otherwise, you will pay the price in blood. Jiang Tian's cold and emotionless voice came. Sasaki Kaisha's heart trembled when she thought of Jiang Tian's terrifying cultivation. But on second thought, he was still in Kyushu, hundreds of kilometers away from Tokyo. What could he do to her? Therefore, she was fearless and arrogant as she said, Grandmaster Jiang, you'd better prepare for the upcoming battle. Your chances of winning are very slim. Besides, what right do you have to order me around? Sasaki Kaisha, do you think I can't do anything to you? Jiang Tian sneered and asked in a cold voice. I respect Master Kong very much, and I have no intention of challenging you. Master Kong, do you want to come to the Sakura Society alone to kill me? Sasaki Kaisha retorted, I've always respected you, but there are many experts here who have always wanted to challenge you. If you want, you can give it a try. Good. Then I'll let you see the price of disobeying my, Kang Tae-chu's, orders. Jiang Tian laughed and hung up the phone. What a bluff. Sasaki Kaisha put down the phone and forced herself to calm down. The conversation with Kang Tae-chu made her very nervous, but her mouth was unforgiving. She said in disdain, I just received a call. He appeared on Azura Street in Fukuoka 20 minutes ago. I don't believe that he can fly to the Sakura building in 20 minutes. President Sasaki, I suggest that we make a move on Kang Tae-chu's family. Haven't we already investigated his true identity? He's from the Jiang family of Jinling. Mitsui Takori said coldly, if we capture his family, I'm afraid he'll be seriously affected in his duel with the God of Swords. He might even throw away his sword and admit defeat, allowing us to slaughter him. Yes, Mitsui-san's words are very reasonable. Matsushita Kudai nodded in approval. If we capture his family, won't we be able to do whatever we want to him? Many East Asians were discussing among themselves, and all of them agreed. Kang Taechu's family has now become a cultivation family. Recently, they have killed many experts from the dark world. Sasaki Kaisha smiled helplessly. She was about to say something, but before she could say it out loud, It hurts so much. A high-ranking member of the Metropolitan Police Department suddenly screamed and fell to the ground. He clutched his chest and kept screaming and rolling on the ground. His whole body was covered in blood, and his chest was bulging as if there was a monster jumping inside. It looked like it was going to be torn apart in the next moment. Streaks of blood-red light formed a demonic flower, which continued to expand, and then explode. Chapter 437. Ah! My heart hurts. At the same time, more than a dozen East Asians fell to the ground amid continuous screams. Their chests were bulging, and a blood-colored flower appeared on their swollen chests. Some of them screamed, while others fainted instantly. Sasaki Kaisha rushed to Matsushita Kudai's side and shouted, "Mr. Matsushita, what's wrong with you?" Matsushita Kudai was in so much pain that he couldn't say a word. His eyes rolled back, and his whole body convulsed and screamed. "What's wrong? That's terrible. Are they possessed by monsters? Call a doctor." Some of the others were also scared and stepped back. Some looked at each other, some screamed, and some went out to call the security guards and doctors. In the blink of an eye, a series of dense explosions rang out, and the chests of the dozen or so fallen men exploded. Pieces of their hearts and streams of blood shot out in all directions. Sasaki Kaisha only felt that his face was hot, and there was blood on his face. He closed his eyes subconsciously, and when he opened his eyes, he was completely stunned. Matsushita Kudai's chest had also burst open. His eyes were still wide open, but he was no longer breathing. "Oh, their chests, what's going on? Why did they suddenly?" The rest of the people were scared out of their wits and sat on the ground. Their legs were like noodles, and they couldn't even stand up. Streaks of crimson light rolled and surged before converging together to form a red phantom that vaguely resembled Jiang Taichu's image. This is Kang Taechu. Everyone was so scared that they trembled all over, as if they had seen an evil ghost. The phantom's face was full of a cold and murderous look, and he sneered. "Sasaki Kaisha, do you think that I can't kill you from hundreds of miles away? When you came to Fukuoka in the morning to send the letter of challenge, I have already planted the blood curse of Blooming Heart in all of you. If I want to kill you, it's just a matter of a thought. I can't believe his spell is so powerful. He managed to place a curse on us while he was talking and laughing, without us noticing." Sasaki Kaisha was shocked and felt a chill in his heart. It could be said that her impression of Jiang Tian was refreshed again and again. Her worldview was overturned again and again. Jiang Tian's strength was far beyond her imagination. "Master Kang, please spare our lives. We know we were wrong." The rest of the East Asians who were planted with the blossoming heart immediately knelt on the ground and cowered like quails. It could be said that in front of Jiang Tian's terrifying killing methods, high officials and tycoons were all scared out of their wits, their hearts constricting. "Master Kang, this old man has a foul mouth. Please don't take it to heart." Even Mitsui Takuri couldn't bring himself to be arrogant. His face was pale as he knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "Sasaki Kaisha, your organization killed 123 Huaxia people. I'll double that and kill 246 of your people." The illusory figure said indifferently, 16 people died just now. Now we are short of 230 people. So, the killing has begun. The voice was cold and ruthless, like the whisper of a demon from the depths of hell. "How dare you!" Sasaki Kaisha unsheathed her katana and slashed at the illusory figure. Kang Taechu's original body was very powerful. Even 10 Sasaki Kaisha couldn't defeat him. However, this was just a psychic energy that was attached to someone else's vitality. She wasn't afraid. Bang! Bang! Under the sharp saber chi, the scarlet shadow shattered inch by inch, never to reform again. Okay, we are safe now. Let's leave first. Everyone, spread out. We will meet again after the God of Swords kills him. Seeing this, everyone finally regained their composure and walked towards the door in a seemingly unhurried manner. Even if they were scared out of their wits, they still had to maintain their composure. But at this moment, a dragon's roar came from outside the window. When everyone heard it, their hearts beat wildly. They were stunned and their footsteps slowed down. They all turned to look out the window. In that instant, a black light more than 10 feet long flew in from outside like a celestial from outer space and circled around the three people. Then, a dozen thin black lights burst out from the black light, dazzling to the eyes. The high-ranking officials in the hall subconsciously closed their eyes. In the blink of an eye, the black light had flown out of the hall. Everyone stopped in their tracks. A tycoon from the Matsushita family who rushed to the doors stood motionless with his back to the crowd. He seemed to be surprised. The other members of the upper class were also surprised and confused. They didn't know what had happened. Suddenly, a high-ranking official of the Metropolitan Police Department screamed. Everyone couldn't help but look over. The official's face was pale and bloodless. The head of a kendo expert next to him had rolled off his neck at some point. Only a headless corpse stood there silently. Blood splattered 3 feet high from the neck. Only then did everyone realize that a dozen heads had fallen to the ground in the hall. They had all died silently. Outside the door, there was also a series of screams. The people in the hall were in a mess, shouting and panicking. They didn't know whether to leave or stay. 3 minutes later, a bodyguard covered in blood ran in and reported that a black light had flown in and the members of the Cherry Blossom Society had died one after another. According to the statistics, there were more than 200 of them. Including the high-ranking officials who died in the hall, a total of 246 people died. Mitsui Takori said with a trembling body, 246 people, more than half of the Cherry Blossom Society. I'm afraid that the Cherry Blossom Society will only exist in name after today. A tycoon trembled with fear in his eyes. If the old God of Swords doesn't win this battle, I'm afraid that the entire Japanese cultivation world will succumb to Jiang Taichu's tyranny in the future. A high-ranking official from the Metropolitan Police Department said with an ashen face. So many people died, Sasaki Haisha stood there dumbfounded. She felt a chill in her heart. She regretted it very much and was very scared. Regret. If she hadn't rashly initiated the invasion of the Chinese community, if she had sincerely apologized and stopped the invasion when Jiang Tian called just now, she might not have suffered such a huge loss. She was heartbroken. Her fiancé had also died an unnatural death because of her contempt for Jiang Tian, fear. Killing people from hundreds of miles away. Sasaki Aisha didn't have the slightest courage to resist such a powerful force. She could only tremble in fear. She immediately announced that all the invasion activities would be stopped. The government would also come out to comfort and compensate the dead and injured Chinese. Furthermore, he quickly contacted Ishii Yu Yen and asked her to convey his apology to Grandmaster Jiang, as well as their next steps. The next day, Jiang Tian received a call from Qing'er. She had led the Heavenly Alliance's experts into Japan secretly. She was going to enter Tokyo and suppress the Japanese government's senior officials to prevent the Japanese self-defense forces from attacking. However, on the day of the battle, she and the other members of the Heavenly Alliance would go to Mount Fuji to support Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian didn't stop them. With Qing'er's current cultivation, she could even come and go freely in the United States White House, let alone the Japanese cabinet mansion. Soon, the third day of the battle arrived. Jiang Tian took a civilian helicopter provided by the fucking gang. Accompanied by Yi Zhantian, Du Gushao, Su Yi, and Song Jigang, he went straight to Mount Fuji. As for the Japanese self-defense forces' sneak attack at this time, he wasn't afraid at all. Firstly, he felt that it was unlikely. After all, the elderly god of swords had decided to attack and made it known to everyone in the world of cultivation. It would be too embarrassing to send the self-defense forces at this time. Secondly, he wasn't afraid. Even if the Japanese self-defense forces attacked, he was confident that he could deal with them. Thirdly, Jiang Tian and many of the Japanese bigwigs he had met were cursed with the elated heart curse. Although he killed some of them the day before yesterday, there were still people like Deputy Prime Minister Fuji Sai and Mitsui Takari who were still alive. They were hostages. Many of the overlords who were paying attention to the battle arrived at Mount Fuji a day earlier than Jiang Tian. This battle was truly too exciting. The battle between Kang Taechu, the top overlord in Huaxia, and the origin of the sword god of swords in Japan was the most brilliant battle in 100 years. The impact was too far-reaching. It was related to the rise and fall of the martial arts world of the two countries. Who wouldn't be excited and pay attention to it? Therefore, in just one day, the martial arts world of Japan and Huaxia all gathered at Mount Fuji. There were dozens of grandmasters. In addition, this battle also attracted the attention of the overlords around the world. Many mysterious organizations like the Blue Storm of the United States and the Pantheon of Europe sent overlords to watch the battle and see the strength of Huaxia and Japanese martial arts world. As for the Heavenly Alliance, the Tanjun faction of South Korea, and the Singapore Chinese Society, they were all in Jiang Tian's camp. In this way, more overlords gathered. There were more than 100 of them, all of whom were powerful and extraordinary. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department was very nervous about this and sent a large number of police officers to guard around Mount Fuji. After all, the destructive power of these overlords was too terrifying. If it spread to the mortal world, it would turn the world upside down. Not only the martial arts world was paying attention to this battle, but many tycoons in Japan, as well as several cabinet ministers and members of parliament, had also come to the battlefield to witness and observe this peak battle to provide the basis for the next step of decision-making. We're here. In the cabin, Jiang Tian slowly opened his eyes. A sharp murderous intent flashed in his eyes. The helicopter was very fast. 2 hours later, at 10 o'clock in the morning, Mount Fuji was in sight. Mount Fuji was 3,775 meters above sea level. It was the highest peak in Japan and was regarded as the sacred mountain by the Japanese people. It was known as the symbol of Japan and enjoyed a great reputation around the world. It was an active cone-shaped volcano that was in a dormant state. There were 8 peaks around the saw-toothed crater, known as the 8 Fuji Peaks. They were covered in snow all year round. The tallest one was called the Sword Peak and was the most dangerous. Today, Jiang Tian would fight the old sword god of Japan, Miyamoto Genichi. Jiang Tian's old and new hatred surged in his heart. His fighting spirit rose steadily like a surging tide. Chapter 438. The 5 lakes of Fuji are located at the northern foot of Mount Fuji. From east to west, they are Yamanaka Lake, Estuary Lake, West Lake, Sijin Lake, and Hunky Lake. There are many sports facilities around the lake, such as tennis, water skiing, fishing, camping, boating, and more. The Ninja Village at the southeast of the lake has 8 ponds, including Yongchi Lake and Jingchi Lake. They are known as the 8 Seas of Ninja, and they are connected to Yamanaka Lake. Estuary Lake is the earliest developed among the 5 lakes, and it has become the tourist center of the 5 lakes. Currently, many powerful martial artists have gathered in this area to watch the match. These are the weaker martial artists in the world. Grandmasters are allowed to climb the mountain to watch the match. The police have set up barricades at the entrance of the mountain, and ordinary people are not allowed to enter. What's going on? Why aren't they letting people in? In the crowd outside the cordon, Yuan Ning was wearing a short white windbreaker and skinny jeans, which made her beautiful legs look even more slender. Chen Jiafu hugged Yuan Ning's shoulder and smiled. Due to the weather, Mount Fuji is only allowed to climb the mountain during the summer. It's usually from July 1st to August 26th. It's November now, and it's time to close the mountain. After returning from South Korea, both of them have been in a relationship. They have even met each other's parents and are planning to get married. I know that, but I saw some people being allowed to enter the mountain. Yuan Ning grumbled. After acquiring Star Moon Group's 3C business in South Korea, Giant Egg Network's sales had skyrocketed. Sun Jingyi from SoftBank Group invited Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning to Japan to discuss their next expansion plan. During the meeting, Sun Jingyi invited them to tour Mount Fuji. Yuan Ning had a good time playing tennis, fishing, and camping. But it's a pity that she didn't get to climb Mount Fuji. Sun Jingyi walked over and smiled. Ms. Yuan, don't be surprised. Those who can climb the mountain are not ordinary people. They are cultivators. People like kendo masters, ninjas, and onmyojis in Japan. Although Sun Jingyi's surname is Sun, he is a Japanese descendant of South Korea. He was educated in Japan and the United States, and he has nothing to do with Huaxia. Cultivators. Why would they come here? Yuan Ning's face suddenly showed a hint of surprise. Sun Jingyi smiled proudly and said, not to mention you, even I don't have the qualifications to watch from a close distance. Being able to reach this area was already the result of spending a lot of money. I'm an outer member of the Cherry Blossom Society. What? Even you can't go in, why? Yuan Ning and Qin Jiafu were shocked and couldn't believe it. He was the world's leading investor in the technology field. His SoftBank Group had been listed in 1994 and owned more than 100 companies in Japan, as well as important joint ventures or sole proprietorships throughout the United States and Europe. His business relationships, venture capital, strategic alliances, and other assets under his jurisdiction totaled $20 billion. He was one of the top 20 major companies in Japan. Even in Japan, he was famous for his power. Sun Jingyi was able to chat with the members of Congress, but there was actually a place in Japan that Sun Jingyi could not go to. I heard that an expert from Huaxia's martial arts world is having a duel with an expert from Japan. This is also one of the reasons why I brought you to Mount Fuji. There was a flash of sadness in Sun Jingyi's eyes as he smiled and said. SoftBank was still a far cry from the old tycoons like Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Mitsubishi. In Japan's upper-class society, he was relatively inexperienced and belonged to the nouveau riche. He had not entered the core level, so he only knew a little about this news. He was not qualified to enter the core area. What? The expert from Huaxia's martial arts world can't be Jiang Tian. Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning were shocked, but they did not dare to ask. Because Jiang Tian had said that the two of them were not allowed to reveal any information about him to anyone. At this moment, the crowd was in an uproar. From the direction of the mountain, a super-luxurious motorcade slowly drove along the mountain road with an arrogant aura. In the middle of the motorcade, there were 7 or 8 Lincoln and Bentley limousines. The Maybach Pullman limousines were all priced at tens of millions of Huaxia dollars. In addition, there were BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, Rolls-Royce, Cadillac. There were more than 100 of them, enough to support a large-scale luxury car show. The first few Lexus stopped within the cordon, then the doors opened together. A group of muscular men in black suits, black trousers, sunglasses, and black trench coats appeared one after another. They ran to both sides of the road and formed 2 human walls, standing straight and vigilant. Seeing this, Sun Jingyi and the other Japanese retreated to the side of the road like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Who are those people in the car? Such a big lineup, if I didn't know, I would have thought that the Prime Minister was on a tour. Yuan Ning and Qin Jiafu were shocked. You too, be careful with your words. If they hear you, it will cause a lot of trouble. Sun Jingyi's face turned serious as he reminded them. What's so great about them? Yuan Ning mumbled resentfully. Her father was originally an executive of one of the 4 major banks in a certain country. He was also the son of a powerful family in Yanjin. The key was that she and Qin Jiafu had established a relationship with Jiang Tian, which gave them more confidence. Miss Yuan, this is the biggest society in Japan, the Yamaguchi Gumi. Sun Jingyi said with a serious face and a hint of arrogance in his voice. In his opinion, Huaxia's economic and technological development was too backward and he didn't think much of it. If he didn't covet Yuan Ning and wanted to dilute and seize Qin Jiafu's shares, he wouldn't have invited them over and brought them around to broaden their horizons. TSK, so it's the Yamaguchi Gumi. Yuan Ning stuck out her tongue. Qin Jiafu's face also changed color. The Yamaguchi Gumi was the biggest society in Japan with tens of thousands of members and branches all over the major cities in Japan. The leader was able to talk to tycoons and members of parliament. This kind of strength, this kind of influence, this kind of behemoth is definitely not comparable to any society in Huaxia. What are they doing here? Qin Jiafu frowned and asked. Before Sun Jingyi could answer, the doors of a few limousines opened. Sun Jingyi became even more excited and shocked. The president of Mitsui Financial Group, Mitsui Takori, the vice president of Matsushita Financial Group, the vice president of Mitsubishi, the curator of Jingshin Kendo, a member of parliament, the director of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, he spat out one name after another that resounded like thunder in Japan. After these people got out of the limousines, they lined up in 2 rows and stood obediently by the roadside as if they were subordinates receiving an inspection from their superior. Sun Jingyi was the one who knew the inside story. Most of the tourists who came by chance were dumbfounded and discussed among themselves. Who's coming? Who are they welcoming? Is it the Deputy Prime Minister? Someone asked in surprise. Are you blind? Even the Deputy Prime Minister Fujisai is in the welcoming team. Another person rolled his eyes and said. If you ask me, they must be welcoming the head of a country, and the head of a major country. Someone interrupted. At that moment, an old-fashioned Hongqi limousine with an arrogant aura sped toward them. It didn't show any signs of stopping even though it was about to reach the warning line. Hongqi limousine. Huaxia people. Are they welcoming Jiang? Huaxia people. Yuan Ning said in shock. Sun Jingyi smiled disdainfully and said, how is that possible? It should be a Japanese powerhouse. They and that Huaxia powerhouse are mortal enemies. Why would they welcome him? But this car belongs to Huaxia. Yuan Ning grumbled in a low voice, unwilling to give in. Why is that car driving so recklessly? Won't it be killed by the Yamaguchi Gumi? A Japanese exclaimed. They must have a death wish. The Deputy Prime Minister and the VIPs of Mitsui Financial Group are all here. How dare they be so arrogant? Someone gloated. Sun Jingyi also shook his head in disdain. Screech. The sound of tires rubbing against the ground was suddenly heard. The door of the Hongqi limousine opened. Everyone saw a young man in white stride out, surrounded by 4 people, and swaggered up the mountain. Does he really have a death wish? Just as everyone was in a state of shock and uncertainty, Jiang Tian had already spread out his divine sense and spotted Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning. Seeing this, he leisurely turned around and walked over. It's Mr. Jiang. Yuan Ning pulled the stunned Qin Jiafu aside and whispered. It's really him. Why is he fighting with the Japanese? Qin Jiafu was dumbfounded. Jiang Tian was too powerful. He was still in South Korea 2 months ago, and now he's in Japan. Jiang Tian had already transformed into the divine gunmetal body. Both of them had met before, and they recognized him immediately. Jiang Tian walked up to Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning and said with a smile, Brother Fu, Ms. Yuan, do you want to join us? Mr. Sun Jingyi from SoftBank invited us here. He's the venture capital investor of Giant Egg Network. Noticing that many Japanese were looking at him, Yuan Ning was so excited that his face turned red, and he felt a sense of pride in his heart. This is Master Kong. Qin Jiafu was so excited that he was at a loss for words. Mr. Jiang, you must be careful. Don't worry. Jiang Tian had a good impression of both of them. He patted Qin Jiafu's shoulder and smiled at Sun Jingyi. Are you Sun Jingyi? That's me. Sun Jingyi was nervous. He suddenly felt a powerful aura. He had never felt this kind of aura even when he was facing Mitsui Takari. Don't covet Chinjafu's shares, and don't sign the VAM agreement. Jiang Tian's voice was heard. Sun Zhengyi was shocked. In fact, he had invited both of them to sign the VAM agreement to compete for his shares. Of course, he was also coveting Yuan Ning's beauty. But how did they know about this plan? Or I'll kill you. Jiang Tian said in fluent Japanese. What? What did you say? Sun Zhengyi was infuriated by Jiang Tian's disdainful look. Jiang Tian was like a god looking down on an ant. He could not stand it. His shock turned into anger. How many people in Japan dared to talk to him like that? Your Excellency, do you know that I can charge you with the crime of personal threat and imprison you for life just because of what you just said? Sun Zhengyi's face was red with anger. He then scolded arrogantly. Who are you? How dare a penniless Huaxia kid threaten me? Do you know that I'm a member of the Sakura Society? I'm on good terms with Yamaguchi-gumi's Mrs. Ishii. The threat in his words was even more obvious. He meant that he would ask Yamaguchi-gumi to kill him. Is that so? Jiang Tian looked at him with a half-smile, as if he was not afraid of Sun Zhengyi's threat at all. Just when Sun Zhengyi was about to explode again. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar. Under Ishii Yurin's lead, Mitsui Takari, and many other Japanese tycoons and politicians walked to the man and bowed deeply. Greetings, Master Kang Tae-chu. Chapter 439. This scene stunned everyone. For a moment, the crowd within a few hundred meters fell silent. One could even hear a pin drop. Everyone was dumbfounded. They stood there like clay sculptures, unable to believe it. Such a grand lineup, all of them big shots in the political and business world, actually bowed to such a young man. Who is he? Why is his status so high? Why are all these Japanese giants bowing to him? Is he the illegitimate son of the Prime Minister? Or is he an unknown prince of the royal family? No. But he's Huaxia's surname. Maybe he's the son of one of the most powerful families in Huaxia. That's impossible. After all, he's too young. Even if he's the son of a powerful family, it's impossible for him to be in power. The surrounding tourists were dumbfounded. After a full 10 seconds, there was a soft discussion and exclamation. Master Kang, please forgive us for offending you earlier. Many leaders of the tycoons and political circles bowed in fear. More than 200 people had been killed in the Sakura Society's headquarters, revealing the power of Jiang Tian's blooming heart and the flying sword. Master Kang could kill people from hundreds of miles away. This was too terrifying. He was like a demon god. As members of the Japanese upper class, they had always supported the Sakura Society. Of course, they also hoped that the old god of swords would win and kill Kang Tae-chu. What if Kang Tae-chu won? Then, they had to express their goodwill in advance to avoid being cruelly purged by Jiang Tian. Do you guys want to go watch the show? Jiang Tian ignored this and looked at Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning with a smile. Can we? Qin Jiafu was a little embarrassed, but Yuan Ning was jumping with excitement. Yes. Master Kang, bring us up. Jiang Tian turned to Ishii Yurin and said, Ishii, let them up. With that, he turned and left. Master Kang, the old god of swords has been waiting for you on the sword peak for a long time. Please go up the mountain. Seeing Jiang Tian talking to the two Chinese, Sasaki Haisha was extremely upset. He was urging Jiang Tian to go up the mountain with a cold face. Suddenly, he saw Jiang Tian walk away and walk up the mountain lazily. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even look at the Japanese. It was as if the many Japanese tycoons who bowed to him were like a cloud of dirty air, not worth mentioning. Arrogant, too arrogant. For a time, Sasaki Haisha was so angry that he wanted to cut Jiang Tian into pieces to vent his anger. Is he the Huaxia expert who came to fight? Sun Zhengyi was shocked, cold sweat trickling down his back. How can he be so young? You must be lying. He is Hua Xia's #1 martial artist, Kang Tae-chu. He once killed many Japanese experts on Lord Tan's side. With one step, he rose hundreds of meters into the air. With one stomp, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. He crushed a shikigami into pieces. Yuan Ning said proudly. Yeah, he's my friend. We drank together. Chen Jiafu also showed off proudly. Sun Zhengyi was also an extreme right-winger. He had always looked down on Huaxia people. He was also an investor of the giant egg network. In front of Chen Jiafu and Yuan Ning, he had always put on a high and mighty attitude. Hearing this, he felt very uncomfortable. When he saw that Jiang Tian had walked far away, he immediately smiled disdainfully and said, "You guys are bragging too much. I've heard of martial arts experts. I believe you when you say that you can shatter rocks with one punch and one kick. But what about rising hundreds of meters into the air and cracking the earth with one stomp? How can Huaxia's martial arts be so powerful?" When Chen Jiafu heard this, he immediately became anxious. "If you don't believe me, wait and see." "Why would I lie to you?" He pulled Sun Zhengyi along. Jiang Tian walked toward the mountain. Every step he took covered a distance of dozens of meters. In the end, he walked faster and faster. Like a whistling arrow, he shot toward the top of the mountain. How can this person walk so fast? It's as if he's flying. Many people were stunned and couldn't believe it. He is the #1 grandmaster of martial arts in Huaxia. He wants to challenge the first origin of the Sword God Palace in Japan. Someone explained. What? The first origin of the Sword God Palace? Is he still alive? He hasn't appeared in public for decades. Yeah, I think it was the last time he appeared at the Emperor's Ascension ceremony in the 1980s. Is this Huaxia person very powerful? How dare he challenge the Sword God of Japan? He is a godlike existence. At the foot of the mountain, many grandmasters and tourists exclaimed. They looked excited and whispered to each other. They were talking about it with their binoculars. Jiang Tian walked faster and faster. In the end, he stepped on a cloud with his hands behind his back and flew toward the crater at the top of the mountain. Oh my God! That Huaxia person can fly. Is he also an immortal? That's amazing. He's so cool. Many tourists exclaimed as they looked through their binoculars. At this time, Jiang Tian was already a few thousand meters away from them. Ordinary people could never see him without binoculars. He's so cool. I love him. Kang Tae-chu is even more handsome than my Prince Charming Appa. On the mountain path, Yuan Ning walked quickly. She was afraid that she would lose Chen Fan. Her eyes were full of stars. She clenched her fists and stomped her feet excitedly. Look at you, you're so smitten. Chen Jiafu didn't take it to heart. He just looked at her and smiled dotingly. Jiang Tian was too far away from them. Yuan Ning only worshipped Jiang Tian. It was like how a believer worshipped a god, or how a fan worshipped an idol. There were no romantic feelings involved. Did I just offend such a grandmaster? On the other side, Sun Zhengyi was extremely uneasy. His face was pale and his body trembled violently. He put his palms together and prayed sincerely, he must be killed by the god of swords. He must be killed by the god of swords. Jiang Tian climbed to the top of Mount Fuji. Yi Zhantian and Du Gushao followed closely behind. This place was covered with snow and ice and jagged rocks of strange shapes. Around the jagged crater, there was the highest peak, the Sword Peak, and 7 other peaks. They were called the 8 peaks of Mount Fuji. Jiang Tian immediately saw many grandmasters gathered in Huaxia. Under the leadership of Zhao Xueqing, most of the people of the Heavenly Alliance were here. Congratulations to Master Kong for killing the God of Swords and bringing glory to our country. Hua Qingtian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan and the others all kowtowed with reverence and excitement. Get up. You've worked hard in Huaxia. Jiang Tian nodded to show his respect. He was very pleased with the performance of these loyal subordinates today. Not only were the martial artists of the secular world here, but also some people from the sections. Even Zhuo Zimu of Shinong School was here. Grandmaster Jiang, here is an elixir that has been passed down from the ancestors of the Shinong faction. It is used for healing. Please take it with you. Zhuo Zimu stepped forward and bowed to Jiang Tian with cupped fists. Then he handed a bottle to Jiang Tian. Okay. Brother Zhuo, thank you. Jiang Tian nodded to show his gratitude. Master. Why are you here? When Dugu Shao saw an old man, he hurriedly ran over and pulled his hand with a smile. This is Taoist Dugu Qingmu of Langyi Academy. Many people from the semi-hidden sects are also here. Zhuo Zimu introduced with a shocked expression. This battle had affected so many people that even some of the semi-hidden sects were here. This was very unusual and shocking. One should know that the sects, whether they were fully or partially hidden, did not care about worldly affairs. But this time, they were also paying close attention to this matter. Many experts from the sects also bowed their heads and saluted Jiang Tian as a sign of respect. One should know that the Cherry Blossom Society had fought with the sects and killed many of their people. Jiang Tian's battle had also affected their nerves. In the crowd, after Chao Jianjia greeted Yi Zhantian, she waved her fist at Jiang Tian and cheered him on. At the Martial Arts Alliance conference, Jiang Tian had grabbed her by the throat and almost killed her. At Jiang Tian's birthday banquet, she was forced by Elder Chao to kowtow to Jiang Tian and apologize. For a long time, she was very unhappy with Jiang Tian. But now, Jiang Tian was challenging the Japanese sword god on behalf of Huaxia. In the face of this national enmity, she put aside her personal grudge with Jiang Tian. Come on, Master Kong. Master, you must be careful. Under the leadership of Li Jinju and the Singaporean Chinese Society under the leadership of Master Hong Chan, they all came to cheer for Jiang Tian. In addition, Jiang Tian also saw many experts from different parts of the world with different skin colors and temperaments. He glanced over and was suddenly stunned. He saw a bald old man in a black suit sitting in a wheelchair. His face was calm, and his blue eyes were as deep as the sea, shining with wisdom, giving people an unfathomable feeling. Behind him were several Westerners in black, and each of them had an unusually powerful aura, comparable to that of a grandmaster. His mental power is very strong. Jiang Tian was slightly moved. This person's mental power was like the mountains and the sea, covering the entire Mount Fuji and spreading dozens of kilometers away. This is the professor of the American Blue Storm, an X-level arcanist. He is very powerful and can be called a trump card. Yi Zhantian walked to Jiang Tian and whispered in his ear. Mr. Jiang, no matter who wins or loses this battle, it will be recorded in the history books. The professor smiled and nodded at Jiang Tian. Behind him, many arcanists and genetically modified warriors bowed deeply to Jiang Tian as a sign of respect. They had no conflict with the Sakura Society and Jiang Tian at the moment and maintained a neutral attitude. However, they could not ignore an expert like Jiang Tian. Today's battle was a rare opportunity for them to observe the strength of Huaxia and Japanese martial arts. Jiang Tian returned the bow with a fist salute. It was not until then that Sasaki and the others arrived, panting. They were helpless. Jiang Tian's movements were too fast, and they could not catch up with him. Zhao Xueqing walked over with light steps and held Jiang Tian's hand. She smiled and said, "Honey, I believe in you. You are the strongest. If you can't win, then you go." Jiang Tian smiled. He could feel that Qing'er's palm was full of cold sweat. Obviously, she was not as calm as she looked. Cheeky. Zhao Xueqing smiled faintly. Her clear little face was as white as snow, causing the world to lose its color. What's the big deal? Husband and wife are of one mind, their sharpness can cut through gold. Sasaki was annoyed. Just as he was about to remind Jiang Tian that the god of swords was waiting for him at the top of the sword peak, suddenly, a thunderous voice came from the sword peak, which was hundreds of meters high. It was like a huge wave that came crashing down. Kang Te-chu, I have been waiting for you for too long. This low shout contained a pure and powerful aura. It was like the Milky Way falling from the sky, causing the rocks to roll and snow to fly. It was a shocking sight. Chapter 440. What a powerful energy! All the overlords felt their hearts skip a beat. Their pupils constricted as they turned around to look at the sword peak. They knew that Genichi Miyamoto was about to make a move. Wenjun's head weighs 7 kilograms. I need a urinal, so I'm here to chop off your head. Jiang Tian sneered. Then, a powerful sound wave swept out. I'm not in a hurry, but you are. You deserve to die. Amidst the loud rumbling, the two surging and vast sound waves met in the air. Bang! Boom! The airflow exploded, and white air ripples spread out dozens of meters, like a nuclear explosion. The entire peak of Mount Fuji shook violently, as if raging waves were beating the shore. Rocks flew into the air, rolling up thousands of piles of snow. Many experts were even more shocked as they looked at Jiang Tian in shock. Genichi Miyamoto's sound wave was shocking enough. It had the power to destroy everything in its path. However, Jiang Tian's sound waves were not inferior at all. They were even a little bit stronger than his opponents. Get out of here. They were afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire, so they retreated a few hundred meters away and looked up. The battle between the top overlords spread far and wide and had the power to destroy the world. Kang Te-chu, you are really arrogant. Miyamoto Genichi finally appeared on the sword peak. He was so old that he was barely recognizable. Trembling, he held a sword. However, no one dared to underestimate him. It was because his body was emitting a monstrous aura that revealed its sharpness like an unsheathed treasured sword. What a powerful soul energy! Is this the power of an immortal state warrior? How terrifying! When ordinary experts saw his figure, they would be terrified and find it difficult to breathe. They would feel an incomparably powerful pressure. Even Yi Zhantian and the professor, the world's top overlords, were slightly shaken. Genichi Miyamoto stood on the edge of the cliff and looked down at Jiang Tian. Your sound waves and soul energy are the most powerful I have ever seen. They are even more powerful than Yi Tianren. Besides, you are so young. You are a once-in-a-century cultivation genius. His eyes suddenly turned cold and he sneered. But you shouldn't have offended the Sakura Society. How dare you trample on the Hirano Shrine and kill the 6 Shikigami of Momoi Rutaru and Abe Yoshida. You are courting death. In my eyes, they're just chickens and dogs. If I kill them, then so be it. They deserve to die. Jiang Tian smiled coldly and said, all these years, the Cherry Blossom Society has been committing crimes in China. How many people have they killed? Those who kill must be killed. Deserve to die. Genichi Miyamoto, and then his face suddenly turned cold. In my eyes, you deserve to die. Today, I will show you the power of Japanese Kendo. Japanese Kendo is trash. Do you think you're worthy of using a sword in front of me? What a joke. Jiang Tian said disdainfully. Very well, let's fight. Genichi Miyamoto's old face was filled with anger. He tapped the ground with one leg and jumped up like a wild crane. Ninth heaven slash. A cold light flashed. Muramasa suddenly pulled out the demon blade in his hand and slashed at Jiang Tian. The sword slashed down. The world was filled with killing intent. The void trembled as if everything had disappeared. There was only a sword, biting cold and murderous. More than 2,000 meters in the air, the mist within a 1-kilometer radius was rolling. Streams of visible yuan qi turned into tentacle-like airflow and poured into the sword qi, making the sword qi even more resplendent and dignified. Controlling essence qi. A real immortal state warrior. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed and they were extremely shocked. A dazzling sword ray that was 50 to 60 feet long descended from the sky like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens. The sword aura was like a hurricane dragon with extraordinary power. It pressed down on Jiang Tian like a 10,000-ton boulder, carrying with it an aura that could destroy the world. It smashed down on Jiang Tian. Once you enter the immortal state, you will gain divine powers. My words are the law, and my mouth spits out the truth. He can easily communicate with the essence qi of the 9th heaven. How terrifying! Seeing this, many overlords were shocked. This was not the power of a human being, but of a god. This old bastard is really cunning. Even Yi Zhantian looked serious. If he were to face this attack, he would have a hard time dealing with it. 9th heaven slash. The old sword god has mastered the 9th heaven slash of the ancient sword art. The Japanese overlords exclaimed with admiration in their eyes. This is terrifying. TSK, you only managed to absorb the origin energy within a radius of 1 li, and you have the nerve to call it the 9 heavens force? Jiang Tian laughed disdainfully and waved his sleeves. Boom! Rays of golden 7th metal true essence surged out from Jiang Tian's sleeve. This golden aura was like raging waves crashing against the shore, and the waves were like a flying boat. It soared up hundreds of meters and met the 9 heavens slash sword qi head-on. Bang! The golden quintessence and the resplendent sword light clashed in the air, giving off a thunderous sound. In a blink, the ice cracked and the earth cracked. Cracks appeared on the mountain peak and extended for 8 meters. It was a terrifying sight. The boulders that were sucked in were also forcefully crushed and torn apart. Boulders that weighed a few hundred kilograms shot out and rolled down the mountain, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to shake. The power of the attack was terrifying. Everyone who watched the battle felt a chill run down their spines. Both of them were too powerful. Even a small army would not be afraid of them. It's still Jiang Taichu who's better in this strike. The professor tapped his fingers on the armrest of his wheelchair and heaved a sigh. Hua Xia has produced a dragon. Most of the Grand Masters and half-immortal state warriors didn't understand why the professor had made such a comment. Miyamoto Yamamoto's 9th heaven slash was a combination of Japanese yin-yang art and sword Dao. The essence qi of heaven and earth was used as the basis for the 9th heaven slash. In the final analysis, the essence qi of heaven and earth was manipulated by external forces. As for Jiang Tian, he relied on his own aura and didn't rely on any external objects. Yet, he was able to take on the opponent's sword head-on. It's no wonder that he was able to kill Apollo just by relying on pure strength and aura. In the crowd, a beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes said with a shocked expression. She was Artemis, one of the 12 gods of the Hall of Gods. She didn't have Zeus's permission to watch the battle and she didn't hide her identity. As the lover of Apollo, she had always wanted to kill Kang Tae-chu to avenge him. However, she didn't have that confidence anymore. Kang Tae-chu was powerful enough to kill a god. Her determination to take revenge was extinguished in a blink. Too powerful. Too powerful. His body is already so powerful. Does this mean that Kang Tae-chu can defeat Miyamoto? An old priest from a mysterious tribe in South America exclaimed with a shocked face. Not necessarily. Sasaki Haisha said proudly. The old sword god of Japan has only shown 1/10,000th of his power. She looked at Genichi Miyamoto with reverence as he landed on the ground. Everyone was startled and quickly fixed their eyes on Genichi Miyamoto. He wasn't discouraged at all and attacked again. Kang Tae-chu, you are indeed powerful. But I've been sitting here and cultivating for decades. I've reached the phenomenal success stage of the immortal state, and my sword can be called a god. You are no match for me. Although I haven't reached the legendary level where my words become law, I have stepped into the realm where I am one with my sword and I become one with my sword. My sword can change the laws. The sword is me and I am the sword. The sword is God and I am God. I am the only true God in the field of Kendo. I am the sword God. Genichi Miyamoto shouted. He flicked the demon blade Muramasa in his hand and performed a series of dazzling moves. This series of movements contained extreme rhythmic beauty. It was as if an ancient sword immortal had descended to the mortal world to perform a sword art. In the flickering sword aura of the Muramasa, the entire peak of Mount Fuji trembled uneasily. The boulders on the peak bounced and the snow flew. It was as if an earth dragon had turned over and an earthquake had struck. What's going on? Is it an earthquake? Or a volcanic eruption? An earthquake is possible, but Mount Fuji has been dormant for many years. How is it possible? Even the tourists at the foot of the mountain could feel the tremor. They were so scared that their faces turned ashen. There were many earthquakes in Japan. They all thought that there was an earthquake. All of them panicked and screamed. Don't panic. An overlord is performing a spell to absorb the chi of the earth vein. An overlord realized and was shocked. On the top of the mountain, clouds of yellow earth chi turned into yellow light visible to the naked eye and condensed toward the Muramasa's demon blade. It gradually condensed into a 20-meter-long yellow blade. I heard that Genichi Miyamoto lived in seclusion in the suburbs of Tokyo and sold wine. It turned out that it was just a cover. He must have secretly cultivated in the Sengen shrine of Mount Fuji and has integrated his spiritual power with the earth chi of Mount Fuji. Artemis's face changed continuously. Suddenly, she was shocked and realized. A gloating smile appeared on her bright red lips. This time Kang Tae-chu is finished. The professor also thought of this and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Genichi Miyamoto has the home advantage. This time Kang Tae-chu is in danger. If it was a fair fight, Kang Tae-chu may win, but now. Just now, you broke my ninth heaven slash. Then, try my earth slash. As soon as Miyamoto-bun opened his mouth and roared, he seemed to struggle a little as he raised the demon blade Muramasa high up in the air and slashed down. After being compressed and condensed to the extreme, these earth chi blades turned into a mass of chaotic color, just like the beginning of Hongmeng. These air masses condensed the earth chi within a few miles of Mount Fuji. It was more than 10 times more powerful than the ninth heaven slash. Once it exploded, even the mountain peak would be razed to the ground. Boom! Amidst the loud sound, the great earth chop pressed towards Jiang Tianheng. It gave off a heavy and sharp feeling. It is said that before the birth of nuclear weapons, there was an immortal state warrior who shook the army and took control of the regime of a small country. Today, I see that it is true. The professor's face was solemn and his eyes were shocked. In front of this surging and vast force of nature, tanks, artillery, and fighter planes were vulnerable and could be easily flattened and smashed into scrap iron. Chapter 441. Sect Lord, watch out! Hua Qingtian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, and other Hua Xia overlords exclaimed. Brother Chen. Gudu Zhao's face paled. His master had told him that Chen Fan had reached the half-step immortal state. He had even thought of challenging Genichi Miyamoto to avenge his family. But now that he saw Miyamoto Genichi's powerful force, he realized that the gap between them was too big. He couldn't help but sweat for Jiang Tian. Can Kang Tae-chu handle it? Chao Jianjia's breathing became labored. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails almost cut through her palms. Master Akaji and Li Jinju's faces paled. If we were in Kang Tae-chu's shoes, we would have a hard time dealing with it. Even Yi Zhantian, Taoist Master Qing Mu, and other top overlords were worried about Jiang Tian. Very good. I didn't expect you to be able to control the essence chi so well. You can even combine it with your kendo dao. However, Jiang Tian was not flustered at all. Instead, he praised Genichi Miyamoto with excitement in his eyes. He was overjoyed. This old monster, Miyamoto Genichi, was really strong. He was even comparable to some cultivators in the middle stage of chi refining. In terms of Dharma spells, soul energy, and essence chi, Genichi Miyamoto was the most powerful cultivator he had ever met. Wei Shuofeng of the Lingnan province used the earthen jar to control the earth chi. Yet, he was so tired that he coughed up blood. Unlike Genichi Miyamoto was able to control the earth chi with ease. Even Wang Chongyan and the other Dharma spell masters were too far away from Genichi Miyamoto. In terms of kendo dao and martial arts, Genichi Miyamoto had reached the pinnacle. His sword will, sword force, sword chi, and sword aura were all in harmony. It was far more powerful than Lin Zhenyu, Wang Chongyan, and Xiao Bin. However, Jiang Tian smirked. But you don't deserve to be called the sword god. You don't deserve to use a sword in front of me. Before he finished his words, he flicked his finger. Clang! Xiao Hei's flying sword gushed out from the storage ring, emitting a draconic roar. With a burst of cheers and praises, it turned into a black bolt of lightning, like a rainbow piercing through the sun, and slashed towards the sword chi of earth. The great earth slash continued to absorb the aura of Mount Fuji's earth vein. It grew bigger with the wind and turned into a sword light that was dozens of meters long. On the other hand, Jiang Tian's flying sword did not expand. It was still in its original form, about 3 feet long. The black light was probably just an afterimage. He doesn't have sword chi. Just when everyone thought that Jiang Tian was at a disadvantage this time, a shocking scene occurred. Whoosh! Xiao Hei's flying sword tore through the air with an ear-piercing sonic boom. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the great earth slash. The power of Xiao Hei's flying sword was unimaginable. It originally belonged to the heavenly court. It was made of the immortal tier black gold and used by the sword immortal. After being refined by Jiang Tian several times and constantly added with the natural treasures collected from all over the world, its lethality was even far greater than that of its peak. Everyone only saw a flash of black light. Like a hot knife cutting through butter, it cut the condensed sword light of the great earth slash into two. Then, the chaotic and tumbling energy exploded uncontrollably. Rumble. It sounded as if hundreds of thousands of millstones were grinding at the same time. The circular crater of Mount Fuji was like a heavy cannonball being thrown down. The snow, ice, and volcanic rocks collapsed in an instant. The area within a radius of a few miles shook violently. The explosion covered an area of hundreds of meters. The surging chaotic airwaves even submerged the highest peak, the Sword Peak. The 8 undulating peaks around the crater were all shrouded. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. When the smoke and dust dissipated, everyone saw a huge pit with a radius of 10 meters and a depth of more than 3 or 4 meters between Jiang Tian and Miyamoto Genichi. The power of this blow is comparable to several tons of explosives, isn't it? Countless people were frightened and their faces were full of shock. The power of the collision between Jiang Tian and Miyamoto Genichi was still far from the power of weapons of mass destruction such as intercontinental missiles and nuclear weapons. But their strength was already terrifying enough. It was enough to turn a giant ship into scrap iron and even surpass conventional missiles. The martial arts of the East are really terrifying. The professor's face was extremely solemn. He estimated the lethality of this blow and the way to deal with it. An immortal state master was like a walking superweapon. He could destroy a high-rise building with a snap of his fingers and was extremely dangerous. Moreover, if he entered the downtown area, he would be even more terrifying. It would be difficult to fire hot weapons. It seemed that the development of small precision lethal weapons and mechanical exoskeletons for individual soldiers must be accelerated. Otherwise, it would be impossible to suppress an immortal state master. Thump! Thump! Miyamoto Genichi stepped back a few steps and stared at the little black flying sword floating in front of Jiang Tian in disbelief. He said in shock, "What kind of sword is this? How can it destroy my great earth slash?" Is this the sword you used to kill hundreds of miles away in the Sakura building? Flying sword. A trace of pride flashed across Jiang Tian's face. Flying sword? The legendary flying sword. Miyamoto Geniki's face became serious for the first time. He said in a deep voice, "Are you the reincarnation of a sword immortal?" He carefully sized up Jiang Tian, and his eyes flashed. He seemed to have understood something and said in a deep voice, "That's right, I've been studying your information for the past 3 days. The more I study you, the more I feel that you're definitely not someone who obtained a mysterious ancient treasure or inheritance, or had an amazing fortuitous encounter, or was enlightened by an immortal. There may be a shortcut to strength, but there is no shortcut to the state of mind." He seemed to have seen through the truth about Jiang Tian. He said with certainty, "Since your debut, you have shown me the courage, breadth of mind, and structure that you have shown. I feel that I am facing an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years. So, you must be the reincarnation of a sword immortal." Reincarnation of a sword immortal? Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and said, "For me, a sword immortal is nothing. Do you know that even the 9 million sword immortals in the sky have to bow down to me?" The demonic dragon roar transformed into rolling sound waves that swept out. It shook everyone's hearts, and everyone who heard it was emotionally moved. Even the 9 million sword immortals in the sky have to bow down to me. What kind of monstrous domineering aura was this? What kind of aura was this? What kind of suppression was this? It seemed that no one in the world could stop his rise. It seemed that he was the only one in the 9 heavens and 10 lands, overlooking all the heroes. Then what are you? Are you the reincarnation of a god? Miyamoto Geniki was also shocked. "Old man, you talk too much. Let's fight." Jiang Tian was too lazy to talk nonsense. He grabbed the sword hilt with his left hand and flicked the blade with his right hand. The sword hummed like a dragon, and his movements were as graceful as playing a zither. However, the surging fighting spirit was rising steadily, sweeping across the audience like a hurricane and tsunami. "Take my sword." The next moment, Xiao Hei's flying sword suddenly broke through the air. The sound of the sonic boom shook people's eardrums, like the howling of thousands of ghosts. It was incomparably mournful, like the moment when a supersonic fighter broke through the sound barrier. Xiao Hei's flying sword pulled out a white turbulence in the air and shot toward Miyamoto Geniki like a cruise missile. Wherever Xiao Hei's flying sword passed, surging waves of air would sweep out in all directions. The solid ice would shatter, the ground would crack, and huge rocks weighing several hundred kilograms would be shaken into the air before being torn into pieces by the turbulence and crushed into powder. Lin. Miyamoto Geniki's face became extremely dignified. He held the demon blade Muramasa in front of his chest with his left hand as steady as a mountain, and pulled out a dozen talisman magic weapons from his waist with his right hand and threw them out as if they were free. These talismans weren't ordinary goods like yellow paper and cinnabar, and they were instead made from jade, the skin and fur of ancient demon beasts, the scales of Wyrm serpents, the shell of a dark tortoise, or the blood of a dark tortoise, and they carried an aura of time. Every time a talisman was shot out, an invisible barrier would appear in the sky. It was like rippling water, and it looked very beautiful. However, these talismans were all condensed with the power of the world. Even a cannonball would not be able to damage them. Ancient Wudang, talisman of the 3 pure ones. Maoshan sect, talisman of the 5 pure ones. Dragon Tiger Mountain, talisman of thunder and lightning. Kameo clan, mountain turtle shell shield. Tibetan Tantric sect, protective purple gold alms bowl. In an instant, Miyamoto Geniki threw out a dozen talismans and talismans. Some of them came from Dongyang Yin-Yang master clans, but most of them were supreme treasures of the spell world of Huaxia. Many of Huaxia's cultivators saw this, and their eyes turned red. Grief and anger filled their chests as they sighed. Most of these talismans came from the spell world of Huaxia. They were the cornerstone treasures of various sects and clans, and were created by the mighty sages of the past. They were very powerful. It could be said that any one of them was enough to stun a group of people and make their hearts beat faster. Moreover, the crafting methods of many of these talismans had been lost. They were said to be supreme-grade talismans, and each one used meant one less talisman. Even the likes of Su Majai and the Celestial Master Clan of Dragon Tiger Mountain would not use them unless it was a matter of life and death. At that moment, Miyamoto Genichi used all of them in an instant just to block Jiang Tian's attack. He did not treat the talismans as treasures. Motherfucker. During World War II, Miyamoto Genichi led the Sakura Society to wreak havoc in Huaxia. They destroyed so many sects and took so many things from Huaxia. Some of the cultivators from Huaxia were so angry that they vomited blood. These belonged to the Maoshan sect. Some of the Maoshan sect's disciples were furious when they thought of the blood feud. Back then, the Japanese soldiers fired over a dozen cannons at the Maoshan sect. Several of the old immortals were killed by the cannons. It was only then that Miyamoto Genichi led the Sakura Society to loot and take all of the talismans away. Yang Guochang, who had met Jiang Tian once at the Crouching Dragon Villa, was even more furious. Master Kong, cut him into pieces and avenge the ancestors of the Maoshan sect. Is this a contest of talismans? Many of those talismans were looted from Huaxia. Many other cultivators from Huaxia were also filled with righteous indignation, and their expressions were very ugly. Every clan and sect had several of their predecessors killed by the Sakura Society. Every single one of them had been bullied and humiliated, and every single one of them held a grudge against the Sakura Society. This is going to be difficult. He should have many more talismans. Chapter 442. In terms of cultivation resources, the Cherry Blossom Society was on par with super-organizations like the Hall of Gods, the Dark Council and the Huaxiaolong Formation. After all, they had the support of the entire country and had a long history. They were also comparable to the large sects in Huaxia. The Chinese Society of Singapore and the Great Circle were too far behind. They didn't have enough resources. However, Miyamoto Genichi didn't feel the slightest pain after throwing out those top talismans and Dharma artifacts. He just looked serious and his body was tense. He held the blade with both hands and stared at the little black flying sword. Xiao Hei's flying sword pressed forward like a hurricane, finally chopping down on the first layer of qi cover. The Yi Qi Sanqing talisman was said to have been made by Li Yufu, the sect master of the ancient Wudang sect. It was extremely powerful. Sect Master Li had once used this talisman to withstand the arrows of tens of thousands of Jin dynasty soldiers. Now, it wouldn't even be afraid of tanks. At this moment, the barrier created by this talisman rippled indeterminately, and it carried the natural aura of the beginning of the world. It was completely clear and hazy, and it seemed like the aura of the beginning of the world that Pangu pulled out when he split the heavens and the earth apart. Break! Jiang Tian shouted in a low voice. Boom! Crack! The Yi Qi Sanqing talisman didn't even last for a second before it shattered like a piece of paper. Miyamoto Genichi was stunned and couldn't believe it. However, Jiang Tian's little black flying sword was an item of the heavenly court and had been refined by him with a secret art. It could destroy all living things. And this was Jiang Tian's attack with all his strength. Jiang Tian had cultivated the gung metal divine body and reached the 5th level of qi refinement. He was as strong as a mountain and his sword was as heavy as 10,000 pounds. After absorbing the 6 spirits, his immortal will was also extremely powerful and his sword was mixed with talisman spells. Another thing was that the talisman was indeed powerful, but it had been too long and most of its dharma power had dissipated. Miyamoto Genichi didn't know how to strengthen it, so it was easily broken by Jiang Tian's sword. The remaining talismans didn't last for more than a few seconds and were easily broken by the little black flying sword. It wasn't until the 8th talisman that Xiao Hei's flying sword became slightly sluggish, seemingly a little exhausted. Just as Miyamoto was about to relax, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Break again." The little black flying sword, which had been gradually slowing down, seemed to have suddenly been infused with energy. Its speed once again soared, breaking through a few more shields, and finally piercing towards the thunder and lightning repelling talisman. The Celestial Master sect of Longhu Mountain was known for its powerful lightning-type spells. This talisman was made from ancient thunder fall chalcedony. It was once refined by an old Celestial Master of the Ming Dynasty Celestial Master sect for 60 years. It contained the power of thunder. After it was released, a 7 to 8 meter wide protective shield covered Miyamoto like a ball of lightning. It was as thick as an arm and flashed with silver light. Blue lightning bolts danced around like silver snakes. You're courting death. What kind of divine weapon wouldn't be turned into scrap metal by the high temperature of lightning and lightning? Seeing this, Miyamoto Genichi laughed wildly. I didn't expect Hua Xia's talisman to be so powerful. This lightning is almost the same as the one activated by Zeus, the leader of all living beings. Artemis was shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air. Thunder Shield. This is terrifying. Seeing this, many overlords were shocked. They thought that it would be difficult for Jiang Tian to break this shield. This lightning is no different from the lightning produced in nature. I'm afraid that our recently developed electromagnetic cannons are a bit inferior. This is terrifying. Even the professor's pupils suddenly contracted. His fingers clasped the armrest of the wheelchair tightly. He was full of disbelief. Idiot. Master Kong can even control the 5 Thunder Jade Talisman, not to mention that he is using a flying sword. Seeing this, Zuazimu took a few steps back and gloated. When Jiang Tian went to the Shinong school to exchange pointers, in a hurry, he used the 5 Thunder Jade Talisman made by the Celestial Master of the Celestial Master sect to kill Jiang Tian. But the result? Jiang Tian hugged the void with both hands, controlled the lightning, and blasted the statue of Shinong to pieces. Now that Jiang Tian had made several breakthroughs, his cultivation was even more powerful than before. How could the Thunder Jade Talisman resist Jiang Tian? Bang! Sure enough, the black light pierced the ball of lightning in an instant. It was as easy as a needle piercing a colorful soap bubble. The lightning lost the control of magical power and turned into a chaotic flow, hitting the ground and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Hiss! Many of the experts present sucked in a breath of cold air. They were filled with disbelief. Jiang Tian's sword broke the ball of lightning. Was he still human? It was like an immortal spell or a divine spell. Kang Teichu's combat power is terrifying. Seeing this, Artemis was so shocked that she took a step back. Sweat broke out on her forehead, and her impression of Jiang Tian was renewed. At this moment, she realized that Zeus had repeatedly warned her not to provoke Jiang Taichu of Huaxia. He was really prescient. Such terrifying power would require at least 3 sovereigns to attack at the same time. Furthermore, they had to work together in perfect coordination. Only then would they be able to suppress it. If she were to fight alone, the difference would be too great. These talismans and artifacts were all made by the Celestial Master of the Tao body. Each shield is comparable to the full defense of an immortal state master, but Jiang Tian broke it. Is he really the reincarnation of a sword immortal? The professor's face was filled with shock, and his wise eyes shone brightly. He had always believed in science. After decades of research, he believed that the legendary gods didn't exist at all. They were only powerful mutants, divine masters, and talents. In Blue Storm's God-making project, they relied on technology to stimulate the human body's potential and created several level X mutants. Their divine powers and power were comparable to the gods in the myths. They were called the American gods. In his eyes, the idea of reincarnation was nonsense. But now, his deep-rooted belief was shaken for the first time. Everyone else's expression changed drastically. From the beginning until the end, Jiang Tian didn't use any secret techniques or profound techniques at all, and he only used a simple black-colored flying sword to successively break through the defenses of numerous talismans and magic tools with pure strength. This sort of situation was too rare, and it was too shocking. Block. When the purple gold alms bowl from Tantric Buddhism shattered, Miyamoto Genichi obviously knew that this was a matter of life and death. He took out a black turtle shell. The shell of the mountain turtle. The mountain turtle shell shield is a peerless treasure made by the Grand Onmyoji Onpei Saimai. The Onpei family has used it. Seeing this, many East Asians were shocked and exclaimed in unison. Seeing this, an old man from the Onpei family laughed proudly. That's right, this is my family's ancient treasure. But to be able to help the old god of swords kill Kang Te-chu, it's worth it. Everyone was shocked. Even Yi Zhantian and other top-notch Huaxian cultivators were shaken. The mountain turtle. It's also known as the Dai mountain turtle. It's recorded in Lai Zi and Tangwen. Legend has it that in the east of the Bohai Sea, there are 4 divine mountains, such as Yingzhou, that float with the tide. The celestial emperor is afraid that the current flows to the North Pole, causing the giant turtle 15 to raise its head and remain motionless. Yi Zhantian said with a serious face. It seemed that the 4 great islands of East Asia were all carried by this strange black turtle shell. This kind of legend was not credible. However, the monstrous power of the mountain-carrying turtle was evident. Its strength was infinite, indestructible, and unpredictable. Would Jiang Tian be able to break the Dharma artifact made from its shell? Jiang Taichu, even if a god descends, he can't break this mountain-carrying turtle's shell that has been refined by Onpei Qingming for her whole life. Let's see how many times you can use the flying sword. Miyamoto Genichi laughed maniacally as he summoned the mountain turtle shell. The turtle shell trembled violently as cracks appeared on its surface. But then, rays of colorful light shot up into the sky and formed a giant vortex with a long tail. The vortex flew toward Xiao Hei's flying sword. Using a turtle shell as a Dharma artifact? What a joke! Are you a turtle or something? Jiang Tian said with disdain. The mountain turtle shell was a large demonic beast, but it had yet to become a demonic immortal. Even if it was alive, Jiang Tian could kill it with one strike, let alone a turtle shell. To Jiang Tian, it was just a matter of destroying it with one strike. What? Do you still have a trump card? Miyamoto Genichi couldn't believe it, and his face suddenly became stunned. Bah, you really think too highly of this turtle shell, how can it make me use my trump card? Jiang Tian laughed again and shouted in a low voice, break again. Boom! The black light on Xiao Hei's flying sword suddenly expanded and turned into a black rainbow with a golden edge, like a tornado, bombarded out. This time, Jiang Tian really exerted all his strength. Not only was his spiritual awareness driving the flying sword, but also integrated with the 7th metal true essence, and the attack power instantly increased by more than 10 times. Chi! Chi chi! This was the sound of the 5-colored chi emitted by the mountain-carrying turtle shell being cut by the Genjin sword aura. As soon as the Genjin sword aura appeared, it was like a ferocious tiger seeing a flock of sheep. It instantly stirred up the 5-colored chi and rushed against the current, rushing in front of Miyamoto Genichi. What a powerful sword light! Miyamoto Genichi screamed in horror. This sword light was too sharp and too fast, like a hot knife through butter, it rushed to his chest in the blink of an eye. The sharp sword aura broke through the multicolored haze and stabbed the ancient mottled mountain-carrying turtle. At first, the latter shone brightly, and clouds gushed out, as if a scorching sun had risen out of nowhere. But in the next moment, it suddenly dimmed and shattered. So strong! Miyamoto Genichi threw away the turtle shell, while holding the Muramasa demon sword and continuously slashed horizontally and vertically, while rising into the air and retreating quickly. When there was a gap, he used his magic weapon, and his hands panicked and pulled the spiritual energy from the void to condense into a shield, trying to block Xiao Hei's flying sword. In the blink of an eye, he slashed 8 times in a row and pulled out more than a dozen yuan qi shields to block. Every time Xiao Hei's flying sword hit, he had to retreat dozens of meters. After a few rounds, he had retreated 400 meters away, at the edge of the crater. Great! From the beginning to the end, Miyamoto Genichi was suppressed by Master Kong, and several talismans and magic weapons were useless. It seems that this time, Miyamoto Genichi will lose. Seeing this, many Huaxia powerhouses, Li Jinju, Master Hongba, and others were excited, as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and their blood was boiling. Master Kong is mighty and domineering, the #1 martial artist in Huaxia, a powerhouse from a small country. How can an old man be his opponent? Many of them looked proud and deliberately shouted to let the Dongyang people hear, only to feel proud. There was a sense of pride and glory in the fox exploiting the tiger's might. Chapter 443. What a sharp sword aura! Miyamoto Genichi's forehead was sweating. His kendo suit had been cut several times by the sharp sword aura. There was a 3-centimeter-long wound under his ribs that was dripping with blood. He panted twice and his heart skipped a beat. It could be said that if he had made the slightest mistake just now, he might have been cut in half. However, he was still injured even though he had used all his strength. This was the result of using the demon blade Muramesa, which had the enhancement effect of sword qi, pulling out several shields of heaven and earth spiritual qi, and throwing out 3 kinds of protective magic treasures in succession. Jiang Tian's little black flying sword was too domineering and terrifying. Miyamoto Genichi, how much of the map of the ruins of immortality have you got? Hand it all over and I'll spare your life. Jiang Tian stepped forward and transmitted his voice with his divine sense. The fewer people who knew about the secret of the ruins of immortality, the better. Jiang Tian did not want to publicize it. You're also looking for the secret of the ruins of immortality. It seems that the legend of the ruins of immortality is true. Moreover, since you're also looking for the secret of the ruins of immortality, it means that you're not an expert from the ruins of immortality. Hearing this, Miyamoto Genichi's expression changed slightly as if he had understood something. A trace of certainty and contempt flashed in his eyes. If he was an expert from the ruins of immortality, Miyamoto Genichi would definitely avoid him. However, since Jiang Tian came from this world, he was not afraid even if he was from the Yin sect of Huaxia. One had to know that when the East Asian invaded Huaxia, he had killed many experts from the Yin sect. After decades of absorbing the martial arts of many sects, he thought that there were only a few people on this planet who were stronger than him. He also used some kind of spiritual communication secret method. Although it was not as clear as Jiang Tian's divine sense transmission, he could still hear it clearly. You talk too much nonsense. Are you going to hand it over or not? If not, you'll die immediately. Jiang Tian was also more and more certain that Miyamoto Genichi must have the map of the ruins of immortality. Suddenly, his fighting spirit surged. Kang Te-chu, you're too arrogant. The demon blade Muramesa in my hand is known as the Blade of Misfortune and the Blade of Slaughter in East Asia. In history, it has killed tens of thousands of people. Even the Tokugawa and Oda families have died under its blade. Miyamoto Genichi no longer communicated with Jiang Tian through his mind. A touch of arrogance appeared on his face. The long saber in his hand flickered as he roared. Finally, his body shot up into the sky like an arrow and slashed down with his sword. Crack! Like a thunderclap, the void seemed to have cracked open, and a line of blood bloomed from the center of the Demon Blade village. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a blood-colored blade light that was 50 or 60 meters long. It carried a bloody smell that soared to the sky, like the Milky Way falling from the 9th heaven, and fell toward Jiang Tian. Wherever the saber chi passed, rocks were sent flying and the ground cracked. Terrifying cracks interweaved together like a spider web. At this instant, there seemed to be nothing else in the heavens and the earth, and only a murderous, bloodthirsty, and brutal sword remained. The power of this sword was indescribable. It seemed to have the terrifying power to tear apart the sky, split the earth, and destroy all living things. It's actually a real middle-grade Dharma treasure. Miyamoto Genichi, you're quite lucky. Seeing this, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with excitement. In the world of cultivation, Dharma treasures were just a general term. There were also detailed classifications. Generally, they were divided into ordinary weapons, Dharma treasures, precious weapons, spiritual treasures, immortal weapons, and divine weapons. In the middle, they were further divided into lower, middle, upper, and extreme levels. Most of the so-called sharp blades and peerless divine weapons on Earth belonged to the category of ordinary weapons. For example, the talismans and protective jade talismans used by many spellcasting experts had a certain amount of Dharma power that could enhance attack and defense. They were all Dharma treasures. Precious weapons, also known as Dharma treasures, were the treasures of Dharma treasures. They had a powerful Dharma power that far exceeded that of ordinary Dharma treasures. The Muramasa demon blade before him could absorb the blood chi and baleful chi of many experts. The more it killed, the stronger its destructive power would be. It was somewhat similar to the demon blades that Jiang Tian had seen in the cultivation world, such as the blood centipede royal blade. It could be said that on Earth, Jiang Tian had seen Dharma treasures in the cave abode of the sacred battle ape Qi Aosheng, not to mention a middle-grade Dharma treasure. Even the Helios golden bow used by the sun god Apollo could only be regarded as a supreme-grade Dharma treasure, not a Dharma treasure. Dharma treasures were too rare on Earth. Jiang Tian suspected that even the Long Formation did not have them. They were very rare even in the Yin sect. This demon blade Muramasa might be able to split open the powerful body of the werewolf and even absorb the blood of the Blood Clan. It was enough to easily kill an immortal state expert. Its power was almost the same as the Heavenly Court flying sword that he had not refined. It could be said that if it wasn't for the fact that Jiang Tian had already cultivated the gung metal divine body, he would have to avoid it and not dare to clash head-on. However, it's just a Dharma treasure. It doesn't even have spirituality. Do you think you can hurt me? Jiang Tian laughed. Spiritual treasures were at the same level as Little Black Flying Sword. They had spirituality and were connected to their masters. In the hands of ordinary chi refining cultivators, they could kill masters at the Foundation establishment realm. So in fact, Jiang Tian had an advantage in terms of weapons. Coupled with his powerful divine body, how could he be afraid of the Muramasa demon blade? I'll kill you until you're terrified. Jiang Tian shouted and his body rose steadily. He was as vigorous as a dragon and soared into the sky like a golden rainbow. Clang! 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 Jiang Tian's little black flying sword slashed continuously and exchanged 7 or 8 moves with Miyamoto. Jiang Tian's little black flying sword had been infused with the gung metal true essence at this time. It was as dazzling as the sun. When the sword slashed out, it was like a golden river, crushing a large area of the void and sweeping across an area. He did not avoid the attack at all. Instead, he flew up and down, rampaging, hacking, and slashing to his heart's content. Muramasa's demon blade's blade of blood was shattered again and again, and the bloody remains scattered in all directions. The middle-grade magic weapon could be said to be very powerful. If it was in the hands of a master at the peak of the god realm, Jiang Tian would not be able to withstand it and would be seriously injured. However, Miyamoto was still too far away from the so-called peak of the god realm. The Muramasa demon blade in his hand was almost unable to hold it. He was shocked by a burst of violent and irresistible force that his blood and chi were surging. His face was as pale as paper, and he kept retreating. Again. Jiang Tian stepped on the void, his clothes fluttering like flags. He laughed and his black hair danced like a waterfall. He was having a good time. The more he fought, the braver he became. The more he killed, the higher his fighting spirit became. It seemed that every cell in his body was cheering and jumping. Every essence and blood and true essence were surging, boiling, and burning. this was not an illusion. In the battle, his cultivation was also stabilized and condensed again and again. He was getting closer and closer to the peak state of the 5th level of Qi refining realm. Killing to prove the way. Tempering one's cultivation in a battle was the only method that Jiang Tian had learned in his long life, to quickly improve his cultivation. Arrogant boy, I'm going to cut you into pieces. Miyamoto Genichi was also furious. He waved the demon blade in his hand and slashed with power, momentum, zen, and music. It was so wonderful that it was like an ancient zither master was playing the ultimate sound of heaven. As the old Japanese sword god, a living fossil, his swordsmanship had reached the peak of perfection by drawing on the strengths of many people. Not only did he absorb the Nitten Ichiryu, Mirror Heart Wise sect, Beichen One Blade School, Idealism sect, Dachi Sword School, and other Japanese kendo arts, but he also understood and learned from the moves of the Hua Xia sword cultivators of Mount Shu and Wudong. Many kendo arts were combined into one, and there were some innovations and innovations. He had reached the point where he could use it easily and use it according to the momentum. Sometimes, the Muramasa demon blade slashed gently. Flowers were not flowers, but mist was not mist. It was like a sky-blue misty rain, and the sword intent was hazy. Sometimes, the sword intent was like an eagle soaring in the sky and a fish swimming in the shallow water. It was like an ancient sword immortal singing with the sword and moving forward. Sometimes, the sword intent was heavy and unmoving like a mountain. Sometimes, the sword intent was violent and moving like a flame. The connection between stillness and movement was like moving clouds and flowing water. Sometimes, the sword intent was dangerous. It was like the sound of a horse's knife and spear, and the sword intent was unconventional. Sometimes, the sword intent was like Mount Tai pressing down and Mount Buzhou collapsing. It was surprisingly defensive and one with a majestic force. It could be said that every slash of his was untraceable. The sword intent, sword chi, sword aura, and sword momentum had all reached an unimaginably high level. Coupled with the demon blade that had a buff effect, Miyamoto had been fighting until his blood chi was surging. The sword aura covered the sky and darkened the earth, making all the powerhouses present palpitate. They were all shaken and dizzy. However, Jiang Tian was stronger. The 7th metal true origin on Xiao Hei's flying sword was swallowing and spitting out. The golden light shone and revealed its sharpness, breaking the blood-colored sword aura. Jiang Tian stepped on the void, twisting and turning like an immortal descending to the mortal world. The ancient god had descended to the mortal world to evolve the sword intent. It was in harmony with heaven and earth. Every sword accurately destroyed Miyamoto's attack. In the end, Miyamoto stabbed out with his sword. Jiang Tian's Xiao Hei's flying sword stirred. A 20-meter-long black sword aura with golden edges was like a raging dragon coming out of the sea. After crushing the blood chi sword aura, it wrapped around Muramasa's demon blade. 13 demon subduing swords, the 8th move. Flood dragon goes to the sea. Oh no! Miyamoto's pupils shrank and he was shocked. However, the sword aura was too fast. It was too late for him to withdraw his blade and retreat. He saw the dragon-like 7th metal sword chi, with a rumble, spinning and blasting on his chest. Boom! Under the bombardment of the Genjin sword chi, the protective gear that was meticulously made from the skin of the hornless dragon was like torn cotton. It could not withstand a single blow and collapsed one after another. In the end, the Genjin sword chi forcefully blasted onto his chest. The sword intent used by Jiang Tian was the strongest sword art from the cultivation world's Wanjian sect. It turned out that Jiang Tian didn't need to use any moves at all. But now, to deal with Miyamoto Genichi, Jiang Tian used a sword art from the cultivation world. Although this move was not the strongest, it was skillful. With the momentum of rotation, it formed a destructive force. It could be called a fatal move. Even if Xiao Bin was here, he would probably die and collapse under this sword. The power of this sword was so powerful that even the peak of the immortal state couldn't withstand it. Even the foundation establishment masters in the cultivation world had to avoid it. Not to mention Miyamoto Genichi. Puff. Miyamoto Genichi's face was painful and his face was distorted. He raised his head and spat out a long arrow of blood. His body instantly flew backward like an arrow across a distance of hundreds of meters and slammed into the cliff of the sword peak. Boom! The snow on the top of the mountain was blown away. The boulders weighing hundreds of kilograms jumped up and rolled down. The mountain trembled. He directly crashed into a hole and sank into it. Wherever he passed, a huge volcanic rock with a radius of 10 meters was smashed into pieces. What beating someone up like hanging a painting? Before Jiang Tian's sword strike, it was like a joke. He had even created a hollow stone sculpture. Chapter 444. Miyamoto Genichi lost. How is that possible? Seeing this, everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. Sasaki Haisha and many other overlords from Japan trembled in fear and shock. Japan's sword god, the top cultivator in Japan, used to be a regular on the power roll. How could he lose to Kang Taechu? Sword god. Many kendo masters from Japan were devastated and they ran to the sword peak to see how Miyamoto Genichi was doing. Kang Taechu won. Many overlords from the dark world were shocked and sweat broke out on their foreheads. As soon as Miyamoto made a move, his sword Dao merged with heaven and earth, drawing in the power of the 9 heavens and the chi of the earth to form a sword art. It was as if a god had descended from the heavens and displayed a power that far exceeded that of an ordinary immortal state warrior. However, Jiang Taichu was even more powerful. He displayed a physical strength that could shake the heavens and earth. It was inconceivably powerful. The sword god is too old after all. He's no longer in his peak condition. It's reasonable that he lost to Kang Taechu. The professor pondered for a while and sighed. After this battle, Kang Taechu will probably become the number 1 on the power roll. If he knew what was good for him, who else could suppress him now? Zeus, the blood ancestor, or is he invincible in the world? Is there really no one who can defeat him? Many overlords from the east and west looked solemn and anxious. As the top overlords in the world, they certainly saw the power of Jiang Tian's last attack. It was too terrifying. They even suspected that even a peak stage immortal state warrior or a peak stage overlord couldn't resist it. Bro, that's awesome. So domineering. Dugu Xiao was fascinated. He hugged the little monkey and did 3 somersaults in the air like a monkey. Then, he gave Jiang Tian a thumbs up. Ever since he saw the little monkey on Zhao Xueqing's shoulder, he couldn't put it down and played with it. The little monkey looked at him in disdain and wanted to say, "Childish. Why aren't you more mature than me? Xiao, now you know that there's always someone better than you out there. You won't be able to defeat him even if you wait another 30 years. Go back and cultivate in seclusion. Don't come out for 10 years. Taoist Master Aoku frowned and scolded him. Bro, I've discussed it with you. We'll travel around Huaxia together. Why do you need to cultivate in seclusion? Dugu Zhao's face immediately turned bitter. He finally understood how cruel it was to be crushed by other people's children. Kang Taechu's too strong. Invincible. Invincible. Slaying Gong Yuani with 1 sword strike, raising the prestige of our nation, raising the prestige of our nation. Look how powerful the martial arts in Hua. Do you guys is Genichi? Genichi, 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 Genichi. Bullshit. I've said it before. He's just an old man. He can't even lift his sword. He'll still kneel when he meets Master Kong. First, it was Chao Jianjia and the other martial artists of the younger generation who were cheering. They pointed at the Japanese experts and flaunted their prowess, shouting and cursing loudly. Japanese kendo, yin-yang, ninjutsu, they're all plagiarized from Huaxia. It's only natural that he lost. Have you ever seen a disciple defeat a master? Moreover, he's an unqualified disciple. Do you think you're invincible just because you stole some talismans and Dharma treasures from Huaxia? What a joke. How can we not have a way to break the talismans made by Huaxia people? Once Master Kong makes a move, sword saints and sword gods. Bah! They're just chickens and dogs. They can't even withstand a single blow. In the end, even the old guys like Hu Qingtian, Zhao Yuankuan and Wei Feilong joined in. They didn't have the demeanor of a grandmaster at all. It was no wonder that the Japanese were too arrogant and aggressive, looking down on the cultivation world of Huaxia. The Huaxia cultivation world had been suppressed for too long. Now that Jiang Tian had defeated the old sword god with a single sword, they were elated. Some words were stuck in their throats, and they had to spit them out. Master Kong is really amazing. Master Hongchan and the other masters of the Xinzhou Chinese Association, as well as Li Jinju and others of the Tanjun lineage, were also in high spirits. Just when everyone thought that Miyamoto was dead for sure, Jiang Tian stared at the bloody figure embedded in the cave with a solemn expression. Strange, he is just a god realm great mastery. With my 7th metal true essence condensed out of the sea dragon, it should be able to destroy him with a sword. How can I feel a rebounding force when I hit him? That's the legendary perfected mind refining armor. In the past few days, Jiang Tian, Yi Zhantian and Dugu Shao discussed the truth of the immortal state in Huaxia. They learned that the dividing line between God realm culmination and perfected mind refining armor. The immortal state mainly focused on soul energy, which meant that one's soul energy, body, and divine sense were all very powerful. Generally speaking, in terms of soul energy, a God realm culmination cultivator could form an avatar of soul energy. The avatar of soul energy also needed to be strong enough to break a tank with one's fists and smash an armored vehicle with one's feet. Of course, the avatar of soul energy would not be able to withstand nuclear weapons or intercontinental missiles. However, the avatar of soul energy must at least be able to withstand the bombardment of heavy artillery, howitzers, and large-caliber firearms. However, even a God realm culmination cultivator could not make an avatar of soul energy strong enough to withstand the bombardment of artillery. In fact, the soul of a human being was very weak compared to the body. An ordinary person's soul would usually be blown away by the wind after leaving the body. The symbol of perfected mind refining was the integration of the body and the soul energy. The soul could control the body at will. The soul and every cell, every bone, every muscle, and every drop of blood essence could be perfectly integrated, and then the potential of the body would be stimulated to the extreme. In this case, it was not surprising that the avatar of soul energy could regenerate black hair, regenerate fingers, and become immortal. In addition, the soul energy must be more powerful and could be combined with the body to form a layer of armor to protect the body. This was one of the symbols of perfected mind refining. Just when Jiang Tian was wondering. Bang! A blood-red phantom broke out of Miyamoto Geniki's body and stood proudly in the air. At this time, Miyamoto Geniki's body was very weak. His sternum had collapsed, his body was stained with blood, his clothes were tattered and messy, and his hair was disheveled. He looked like an old beggar. However, although the bloody shadow was vague and hazy, his eyebrows were straight and his face was as clear as jade. His body was as straight as a javelin, and his clothes were fluttering. It could be seen that it was his appearance when he was young. This is the avatar of Sword God Miyamoto. Sasaki Kaisha, who was running wildly, suddenly stopped in her tracks. Her eyes were full of shock. She had seen it before in the Luduan restaurant, so she recognized it at a glance. However, she knew little about Divine Realm, so she did not know whether the bloody soul was a blessing or a curse for Miyamoto Geniki. Kang Te-chu, I want to thank you. Help me step into perfected mind refining and completely integrate my body and spirit. Right at this moment, the blood shadow's lips opened and closed, and he laughed loudly like a great bell. At the same time, streams of blood chi quickly disintegrated from the decaying body and floated in the air, surging and gathering toward the bloody shadow. I have stepped into divine realm culmination for more than 20 years, but I still can't completely integrate my soul and body. The loud voice resounded throughout the place, shocking everyone. Just now, when you stabbed me with your sword, I activated the secret technique of the Ampere family, the embryonic soul fusion technique, and used the power of your sword to shatter my physical body, shake, and cleanse my spirit. Finally, my soul completely merged with and controlled my body. The blood-colored shadow gradually solidified. First, its muscles were like red agates that emitted a resplendent light. Then, its skin grew and hair grew. As for the real body, his flesh and blood essence was sucked out and gradually turned into a pile of bones. In the end, even the bones shattered like plaster and turned into a pile of gray things. Now, I'm only one step away from reaching the peak of the God state and becoming a true immortal. In the end, the monstrous blood chi rolled and converged, turning into a young man who looked to be in his 30s. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a fair complexion, and strong muscles. He was tall and had black hair and white clothes. Perfected divine realm, this feels great. My body seems to be 10 times stronger than before. I feel like I can crush a mountain with a palm and flatten a city with a foot. My spiritual force has been nourished by the blood chi, and my perception has become even more amazing. I can even feel the rhythm of a butterfly flapping its wings 5 kilometers away. Ha ha ha, Kang Te Chu, thank you. Gong Ben Genuan, who was at perfected mind refining, looked at his jade white and plump palm, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with complacency and intoxication, and then he laughed wildly with a hint of madness. Everyone was shocked. Whether it was the Eastern or Western experts, they were all dumbfounded and speechless. They all looked at the figure with shock, admiration, and fanaticism. It seemed that everything in the world was eclipsed except for that one person. On October 31, 2009, the old sword Gong Ben Genuan advanced in battle and reached the peak of the perfected immortal state. The perfected immortal state. The immortal state was too powerful. His body could withstand the bombardment of bombs, his spiritual force could interfere with reality, and he could form a physical avatar. It was said that his words were the law. The immortal state was too difficult to cultivate. A cultivator's talent, perseverance, state of mind, and understanding were indispensable, and they also needed the support of mountains of cultivation resources. The 4 elements of materials, companions, arts, and land were all required. Once all of this was in place, what was left was a mysterious opportunity and luck. It could be said that the immortal state was as difficult as ascending to the sky. There was only one transcendent grandmaster in 10,000. There was only one immortal state master in 100 million people. How many immortal state masters were there in the world? Some said that Zeus and a few other main gods in the Hall of Gods had reached the immortal state. Some said that a few blood ancestors in the Gathering of Darkness might have reached the immortal state, and some said that an old priest in Africa might have, but there were only a few of them. Not to mention the perfected immortal state. The perfected immortal state required the spiritual force, physical body, cultivation arts, and many other elements to reach the peak state, and they had to be perfectly integrated and unified, which was even rarer. However, Gong Ben Genuan had advanced from the phenomenal immortal state to the perfected immortal state in battle, which was simply shocking. Oh no, the sect master is in danger. Hua Qingtian and the other members of the Heavenly Alliance were startled and their bodies became tense. Chao Jianjia and the other members of the Long Formation felt their hearts sink into the abyss. A perfected immortal state master was rare in 100 years. The real immortal state master had the power to destroy the world, which was only in legends. They had never encountered such a person. Could Kang Te Chu defeat such a person? Honey, in the crowd, Zhao Xueqing turned pale and her body trembled slightly. For the first time, she was worried about Jiang Tian. Chapter 445. No matter how powerful Jiang Tian was, he had once told her that he was 100% confident in defeating an immortal state minor or profound mastery master, but not an immortal state consummation master. According to historical records, an immortal state consummation master was almost unkillable. He could fight thousands of troops alone, come and go as he pleased, and take the head of an enemy in the middle of an army. Kang Taechu is too careless. We should have killed him before he could react. How could we let him break through? Some of the Huaxia experts sighed. Yeah, this is troublesome. Although Grandmaster Jiang is shockingly talented, he's too young. I'm afraid he's only at immortal state minor or profound mastery. Someone was worried for Jiang Tian, sweating profusely. Yeah, if we wait 10 years, Master Kang will definitely be able to beat him. But this old guy has been in seclusion for half a century. His foundation is too strong. Too bad the timing is not right. Many Huaxia masters sighed regretfully. Sigh, Miyamoto broke through in the middle of the battle. What should we do? Red Boat Mage and the other Xing continent experts also had a serious expression on their faces, feeling uneasy. Master, what should we do? Let's fight shoulder to shoulder. Dugu Xiao scratched his head anxiously, like a monkey stepping on a red-hot iron plate. At this time, only Yi Zhantian, Taoist Master Qingmu, and other top masters were able to keep calm. This battle is the focus of the world. How can we fight shoulder to shoulder? Gang fight, we have to do it when no one is watching, right? Taoist Master Qingmu glared at him and smiled faintly. Alright, don't worry. You've underestimated Kang Taechu. The outcome is not certain yet. Yi Zhantian walked to Zhao Xueqing and comforted her gently. Madam Jiang, don't worry too much. I see that Brother Jiang is very knowledgeable. He knows all the secret arts of the past and the present. He has unpredictable power. All of this should be within his calculations. Is Kang Taechu going to lose? On the other hand, the professor and the other Blue Storm powerhouses seemed to have breathed a sigh of relief. The Cherry Blossom Society was closely aligned with the Japanese military and political circles, and the Japanese had always been America's lackey in the international community. That was why the Cherry Blossom Society and Blue Storm had never clashed. They even cooperated and supported Blue Storm's global operations. Compared to the Cherry Blossom Society, the martial arts world of Huaxia seemed to be more hostile. Although they claimed to be neutral to the outside world, they were still more biased towards the Cherry Blossom Society. The old god of swords actually broke through. You've actually reached the true perfection of the deity realm. The heavens are truly helping our Cherry Blossom Society. The old god of swords will definitely win. As for Sasaki Haisa and the other Japanese elites, they were overjoyed and cheered for each other. Kang Taechu is indeed very strong, but he has killed too many people, which is against the will of the heavens. This is the will of the heavens to kill Kang Taechu. A grand priest clapped and laughed. The great god of swords actually benefited from the disaster at the critical moment and reached the peak of the deity realm. From now on, the Japanese will have a peak deity realm powerhouse. Even Blue Storm will have to respect him. This is the blessing of the Japanese, the blessing of the Japanese people, and the blessing of the Cherry Blossom Society. Sasaki Haisa looked at Miyamoto Geniki with a fanatical expression as if he was looking at a god. Kang Taechu is dead for sure this time. Artemis's blue eyes flickered with hatred as she cursed Jiang Tian to die again and again. Old god of swords, kill him. Kill him. Let him know that he's not the strongest in this world. The butterfly skeleton, Tombstone, and the other Dark World elites hated Jiang Tian to the core and roared crazily. Hundreds of Dark World elites were killed in the Battle of Jinlin City. A few days ago, they heard the news of Kang Taechu's death and went to Jinlin City to destroy the Jiang family. However, Zhao Xueqing and the others had already planned it and killed dozens of people. It could be said that most of the organizations in the Dark World had blood feuds with Jiang Tian. Before this, although they hated Jiang Tian, the outcome of the battle had not been decided, so they could only hold back. But now, Miyamoto Genichi had broken through to the god realm perfection in the battle. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was already dead, so how could they hold back? Many Japanese politicians and tycoons also scolded Jiang Tian, as if Miyamoto Genichi was sure to win. Kang Taechu is dead for sure. Qin Jefu, Yuan Ning, just you wait. The old god of swords is stronger. Among them, Sun Zhengyi was the most aggressive. He was still trembling in fear a moment ago, but now he was full of vitality. Next to him, Yuan Ning and Qin Jiafu were nervous and speechless. They were all stunned by this godlike power. No matter what the people below said, Jiang Tian and Miyamoto Genichi were no match for them. In the sky, Miyamoto Genichi's black hair and white clothes fluttered in the wind. He stood proudly like a god, looking down at Jiang Tian and said slowly, "Master Kang, I don't care if you are the reincarnation of a sword immortal or the ancient inheritance, but you are indeed the most powerful person I have met in 100 years. You are far more powerful than Yi Tianren and Zeus. Your soul power is as deep as the sea, your body is extremely strong, and you seem to be able to control metal elements. It is difficult to kill someone with such power, but it is a piece of cake in front of a peak immortal state warrior." After reaching the peak immortal state, everything was different. His soul power, body power, and sword chi had reached an incredible level. The chi of heaven and earth poured into his body like a tide, and his understanding of martial arts also increased. Just speaking, his strength had increased by 3 times. At this time, he was not even afraid of the indiscriminate fire of missiles. His eyes flashed with a clear and wise light. He sighed and said, "Hua Xia has been poor and weak for a long time, and he doesn't pay attention to martial arts. Why don't you turn over a new leaf and join our Cherry Blossom Association? I will definitely give you the position of vice president." "Ha, Miyamoto Genichi, do you think you can kill me? Who gave you the courage?" "Liang Jingru." Jiang Tian laughed loudly, his face full of disdain and ridicule. Miyamoto Genichi was surprised. Who was Liang Jingru? Was she a martial arts master? He had never heard of her. Jiang Tian said with a smile, "Do you think you can dominate the world just because you have reached the peak immortal state? You are a frog at the bottom of a well. Ridiculous. Today, I will kill you until you are terrified, until you are in despair, and until your body and soul are destroyed. I will let you know what real power is." The next moment, Jiang Tian roared and soared into the sky like a dragon. His surging fighting spirit spread in all directions like raging waves hitting the shore. At this moment, everyone was shocked and their hearts were in their throats. They stared at the figure in the sky. Jiang Tian's momentum at this time was no less than Miyamoto Genichi's after the breakthrough. Everyone was shocked. Did he still have a trump card? Had he not used his full strength yet? Really? Then let's fight. Miyamoto Genichi also realized that danger was approaching. He smiled proudly and slashed at Jiang Tianheng with his sword. Clang! With this slash, there seemed to be a sharp bolt of lightning more than 50 meters long flashing between heaven and earth. At the foot of the mountain, countless people looked at the sky. Today, on Mount Fuji, there were many strange phenomena. Rolling thunder and shaking mountains, it was as if the gods in the sky were fighting. With this slash, Miyamoto Genichi was very confident. Now, his connection with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had reached a level where he could control it at will. This was the so-called words of law. No, he didn't even need to speak. He just needed to use it. The blade aura of this slash was condensed by the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It was surging and pure. The moment the blade aura was released, a terrifying crack appeared on the sword peak and kept spreading hundreds of meters away. In the strange rumbling sound, as if thousands of millstones were turning at the same time, the top of the peak, which was dozens of meters high, fell down a few meters like a landslide before it stabilized. Mountain slash. Seeing this, countless people cried out in surprise. Great waves rose in their hearts, and they were dumbfounded. This was not the power of a human being. It was like the ancient gods, able to move mountains, fill seas, and tear the earth. Do you think you are so great because you have powerful spiritual power and can control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth? I will show you what the real words of law is. Jiang Tian sneered and grabbed with his right hand. Then, he suddenly pulled. Boom! With a sound, the weapons in everyone's hands flew out of their hands. Then, they melted or directly shattered into atomic states in the air. The next moment, together with the metal elements in the mountains and the earth, they condensed into surging metal turbulence. Divine power, Gung Jin divine weapon. This scene was too shocking. Everyone's weapons flew out uncontrollably. Even if their owners wanted to control them, they immediately melted and shattered. The metal melted and shattered in an instant, into liquid or even gaseous states, converging into a 10-meter-long metal stream. It was red and pressed across the void. This kind of divine power had a huge amount of energy and produced an extremely high temperature. For a moment, there was an extreme heat between heaven and earth. The snow melted in an instant as if they had stepped into a steamer. Everyone was stunned. Then, these metal streams formed a huge golden sword more than 60 meters long, which collided with the opponent's chi sword. This was no longer a sword chi, but a real metal. It was extremely condensed and sharper than any special metal. Boom! With a sound, Miyamoto Geniki's monstrous blade aura collided with the Gung Jin divine weapon. The blade aura was like paper and shattered in an instant. Even if this blade aura was condensed from chi, it was also very condensed and sharp. It could easily cut a tank. However, under Jiang Tian's Gung Jin divine weapon, it could not resist at all. It did not even last a second. What? This is... Miyamoto Geniki's eyes were shocked. His heart almost jumped out of his throat. His body tilted and he almost fell to the ground. He controlled the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in a broad sense, but Jiang Tian obviously controlled the metal elements. Moreover, he could melt, reassemble, and attack at will. This was simply shocking, like a myth. It should be known that between heaven and earth, the metal element was the most condensed and stable. It was also the most difficult to control. However, Jiang Tian could use it as if it was his arm and finger. At this time, he realized that Jiang Tian's divine sense, or spiritual power, was far beyond his level. What kind of demon was this? Chapter 446. Seeing that the Gungjin heavenly weapon was about to hit him, Miyamoto Geniki roared. The Muramasa demon sword in his hand slashed, sliced, stabbed, flicked, wiped, collapsed, entangled, and carried continuously in the air, slashing dozens of times. Mirror Heart-wise Sect, 10,000 swords in one. Nitten Ryu, Yin-Yang slash. Sword drawing, water slash. Ancient sword style, 1,000 mountains break. Ancient sword style, profound, demon slayer blade. Every slash came from the ultimate move of Dongyang Kendo. It would absorb and condense a surging blade aura of chi weapon and slash toward the Gungjin divine weapon. The condensation of every slash absorbed an astonishing amount of chi of heaven and earth, causing the world to be in a state of imbalance. The void above his head was pitch black, as if it was about to be sucked dry. Large amounts of heaven and earth spiritual chi constantly gathered here and spun non-stop, forming a tornado in the middle of the sky. For a moment, wind and thunder were raging, the air was turbulent and frictional, and lightning as thick as an arm struck down. Clang! Clang! The sound of a yellow bell was heard one after another, and the white sword slashed on the golden chi weapon. More than a dozen sword slashes were shattered continuously. Every time they shattered, it was like a nuclear explosion, and a circle of white air rippled from Mount Fuji. Circles and layers of white ripples chased each other, pushing each other again and again, spreading out for a few kilometers. Looking from the foot of the mountain, it was like a white ring around the top of Mount Fuji. It was a marvelous sight. Many tourists clicked their tongues in wonder and cheered. They took out their cameras and mobile phones and kept taking pictures. For those tourists who didn't know the truth, this scene was just fun and surprising. But for many powerhouses from the East and the West, this was a world-shaking battle, and its impact was far more than the battle with Momoi Rutaru on Tori Mountain. They're really going all out, and the result will be revealed soon. Yes, everyone has a unique skill that is their trump card. Some powerhouses looked very serious, for they knew that the battle had reached its climax, and their hearts were in their throats. Under Jiang Tian's Gungjin heavenly weapon, Miyamoto Geniki's sword slashes were shattered continuously, and only a few thin cracks appeared on the Gungjin heavenly weapon. Geniki retreated several hundred meters in the air. Good. Kang Taechu, you've really become stronger, but you've also tempered my cultivation to become more solid. Unexpectedly, Miyamoto Bento laughed instead of being shocked. His expression became more and more excited as he laughed wildly and shouted, "However, it's time to end this. When the heavens emit killing intent, the stars move. When I emit killing intent, the heavens and earth are overturned. When the earth emits killing intent, dragons and serpents rise. Die." The demon blade Muramasa in his hand was like a pool of spring water, clear and translucent. Like a whirling wave, it spun in his hand. It seemed to be slow, but it was actually fast. After this slash, the crater of the volcano trembled amidst the rumbling that sounded like the beating of a drum. Hot air rolled out, and a pungent smell of sulfur filled the air. The ground shook, and the mountain rocks rolled down. It was as if a prehistoric giant beast was rolling and crashing in the crater of the volcano. Everyone was on the verge of collapsing. They couldn't even stand steadily, and their expressions suddenly became terrified. Earth fire restrains aged metal, this old thief actually, Yi Zhantian suddenly thought of a possibility. His face suddenly became extremely solemn. It can't be. Taoist Master Aoku and other experts immediately understood. They stared at the crater of the volcano in horror. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, streams of red, dazzling, and scorching hot magma as thick as buckets rose into the air. Streams of steaming hot magma gushed out continuously, shooting straight into the clouds. It was unprecedentedly bright, like tall buildings rising from the ground. Driven by his saber aura, the scorching magma that was thousands of degrees hot instantly turned into dragons and snakes that soared into the sky, cruising and dancing in the air. At this moment, whether it was the tourists at the foot of the mountain, the residents of Yodo City, or the many top powerhouses on the mountaintop, they all saw the most shocking scene. Mount Fuji, which had not erupted for decades, spewed out magma that was dozens of meters high. It rose into the air and condensed into dragons and serpents that danced in the air like red silk. What? Oh my God! Seeing this, everyone was shocked and stepped back. This scene was too shocking. Miyamoto Geniki had stirred up the magma in the dormant volcano and turned it into dragons and serpents to launch a destructive attack. Miyamoto Geniki stood in the air and waved the demon blade Muramasa in his hand. He laughed and said, "Kang Taechu, Mount Fuji is the sacred mountain of Japan, the symbol of the Yamato people. Do you know why the emperor and the cabinet allowed you and me to fight here? It is for this attack, earth fire, dragons and serpents rise. Earth fire restrains aged metal, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken." Before his voice had died away, whoosh! 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 Kaboom! Many lava dragons and snakes charged at Jiang Tian and the gung metal divine weapon with strange roars and clouds of dust. They were like 10,000 mountains crashing down. Kaboom! The aged metal divine weapon was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. Under the bombardment of the magma, the cracks became bigger and bigger. Finally, the light of the weapon dimmed and it collapsed. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, streams of magma had completely submerged Jiang Tian. The 9th peak was piled up in that area. It was also more than 100 meters high and stood side by side with the other peaks. As for Jiang Tian, he was completely covered and couldn't see anything. This. Everyone was shocked and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They couldn't utter a word. The last attack, Dragons and Serpents Rise, was too terrifying. Stirring up tens of thousands of tons of magma was not the power of a human. It was like a god pouring fire from heaven. Kang Tae-chu is a genius, but he has fallen in the end. The professor's heart was in turmoil and he seemed to be a little disappointed. This young man from Huaxia was the most powerful person he had met in the past few decades. However, he was too young after all. Compared to Miyamoto Genichi, the old monster of Kendo world, he was still slightly inferior. He is too powerful and doesn't know how to hide his strength. If he had cultivated for another 30 years, no, even 10 years, Miyamoto Genichi would have been a match for him. An expert exclaimed and sighed. This. Master Kong. Hua Qingtian and the other core members of the Sky Alliance were shocked and couldn't believe it. Could it be that Master Kong has really fallen? Young martial artists like Chao Jianjiao were crying. Brother Chu. Dugu Zhao's eyes were filled with tears as he rushed toward the magma pile that was gradually turning orange. Xiao, the magma temperature is rising and the depth is more than 10 meters. How do you want to save him? Taoist Master Aoki grabbed him and scolded him sternly. Grandmaster Jiang, this is. Many long formation experts looked pale and sad. Their bodies were trembling, and their hearts were filled with sorrow and disappointment. Previously, they had placed too much hope in Jiang Tian. Right now, the feeling in their hearts was indescribable, filled with gloominess. He has fallen. Ishii Yulian's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. She knew that her fate would be tragic. Some were happy while others were sad. The God of Sword has won. On the other hand, Japan was cheering as if it was the new year. They were so excited that their faces turned red and they danced. This is great. Japan now has a peak stage immortal state warrior. A kendo expert shouted excitedly. Kang Tae-chu has humiliated me many times, and now he is finally dead. A smug smile finally appeared on Sasaki Haisha's cold and indifferent face, and he was very happy. In ancient times, Buddha used the five-finger mountain to suppress Sun Wukong. Today, the god of sword gathered the magma dragon and killed Jiang Tian. A grand divine priest nodded and smiled, making the final note of this battle. Why is she smiling? Why is Kang Tae-chu's wife smiling? Is she crazy? Or... But at this time, the grand priest inadvertently turned his head and saw a beautiful woman in the Huaxia camp smiling mockingly. The grand divine priest's heart sank as he thought of a possibility. He turned his head and looked at the magma that was gradually cooling down. Then, a casual voice filled with ridicule rang out. This magma is only 1,000 degrees hot, and you want to kill me? It's just a hot bath for me. At this moment, many people were stunned. He was still alive in 1,000 degrees hot magma. How was that possible? What? He is not dead. What is his cultivation level? Miyamoto Genichi panicked for the first time since his breakthrough. His face was solemn and his hands were trembling slightly. For the first time, a long-lost feeling of fear and trepidation rose in his heart. It was as if he was not facing a human being, but a real god. Grandmaster Jiang once controlled lightning with his hand. The temperature of the lightning was 10 times that of lava. Yi Zhantian chuckled, as if he had expected this to happen. Qing'er was not surprised either. The gunmetal divine body could withstand the firepower of large-scale firearms, but the magma was still not ready. While everyone was looking at Chen Fan with different expressions. Boom! A golden figure broke through the solidifying magma and soared into the sky, punching at Miyamoto Genichi. He crossed a few hundred meters in a blink, leaving a trail of white turbulence in the air. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Miyamoto Genichi. However, everyone felt that there was no sound at all. They could not hear the whistling and the punching sound. Hypersonic body! The professor exclaimed. He saw that Jiang Tian punched Miyamoto Genichi 3 times in a row and shattered several blade auras. The professor was forced to take a few steps back before he heard the sound. Miyamoto Genichi's physical strength was far inferior to Qin Fan's. Even the immortal state warrior was no match for the gunmetal divine body. It was like a clay sculpture meeting Iron Man. He was instantly covered in blood and his body was shattered. Condense. 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 Miyamoto Genichi performed a series of secret arts to heal his broken body, but he was defeated by Jiang Tian again and again. Is this the power of an immortal state warrior? His healing ability is even better than that of the kindred. The professor's eyes lit up as he exclaimed. He is definitely stronger than a Duke kindred. Artemis was also shocked and couldn't believe it. She had fought with the Gathering of Darkness many times, so she knew the healing ability of the kindred very well. However, Miyamoto Genichi's healing speed was much faster than that of a Duke kindred. Chapter 447. But Kang Taechu is still suppressing him. Miyamoto won't be able to hold on for long. A blue storm powerhouse asserted solemnly. Kang Taechu, you can't kill me. Miyamoto Genji's white clothes were stained with blood, like blooming plum blossoms. His hair was disheveled, his face was covered in blood, and his eyes were ruthless like a demon. He roared and slashed his sword toward Jiang Tian. Ha, I'll kill you until you're in despair. Jiang Tian laughed wildly. 2 streaks of black light shot out from his fingertips, piercing the sky with a shrill sound. Clang! Miyamoto Genji's 3-meter-long blade light was pierced by the black iron shuttle, shattering and exploding. The next moment, Little Black's flying sword had circled behind him and slashed at his neck. Miyamoto Genkai was flustered, he twisted and turned his body sideways, attacking from left and right. He continuously sent out 6 saber auras. He was so tired that he was gasping for breath, he was exhausted to deal with the attacks. Crack! Xiao Hei's flying sword broke through the 3 blades of light and went straight for Xiao Hei's chest. Finally, it slashed on Demon Blade Muramasa. After Demon Blade Muramasa spewed out clouds of blood, it shattered into pieces. The demon blade is broken. Miyamoto Genji was shocked. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his crotch. His spiritual power detected that the black iron shuttle had come under him at some point. It rose from the bottom to the sky and pierced his buttocks. Fuck, is this the rhythm of bursting his ass? Master Kong, this is a pinnacle battle. Can you be more serious? This fighting style is too weird. It's so out of place. Many Huaxia martial artists cheered and laughed. At this moment, Jiang Tian unleashed his true strength and completely suppressed his opponent. Everyone was relaxed for a moment. Whoosh whoosh. Miyamoto Genji's figure swayed and retreated. He narrowly avoided the flying sword and shuttle, but the latter immediately chased after him like maggots. For a moment, Miyamoto Genichi was chased by the 2 dark lights like a stray dog. He fled in panic on the top of Mount Fuji, exhausted from dealing with them. Hee, you run pretty fast. Don't run if you have the guts. Jiang Tian, on the other hand, stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked at this scene with a relaxed expression, as if he was watching a good show. Kang Taechu, you have the advantage of a weapon, otherwise, you wouldn't be his opponent. Miyamoto Genji shouted angrily. Alright, it's time to end this. Die. Suddenly, Jiang Tian made his move. There was a loud rumble. His figure turned into a thick golden light beam, leaving a white trace in the air, like a rainbow, cutting through the void and rushing toward Miyamoto. What terrifying speed! It has the power to destroy everything in its path. Everyone's hearts trembled. This golden light beam spanned across the sky, and no one knew how long it could be. It swept across the sky like a comet, as if it could rush into the depths of the universe. Whether it was the powerhouses on the top of the mountain, the tourists at the foot of the mountain, or the residents of Tokyo, at this time, there was only this golden light beam in their eyes. At the same time, the two dark lights, like cruise missiles, trembled with a roar and brought out two white air tails, piercing toward Miyamoto Genji. Kang Tae-chu, you can't kill me. Miyamoto Genji's face was distorted. Fear, anger, unwillingness, and many other emotions appeared in the depths of his eyes. He clenched his hands and condensed several spiritual chi shields in front of him. Then, he poured a large amount of blood essence into the wind-catching blade, condensing it into a blood-red blade more than 10 meters long. He clenched his hands and slashed out. But it was useless. Whoosh! With a sound, Xiao Hei's flying sword pierced through the blood-red blade, circled around his neck, and directly beheaded him. Puff! Before he fell, he was still holding the blade with both hands. The black iron flying shuttle pierced through his chest again, carrying a cloud of blood mist straight into the sky. Whether it was the blood-red blade or the spiritual chi shield, in front of the two divine weapons of the spirit treasure level, they were vulnerable. They were useless at all and collapsed like pieces of paper. How can I lose? I can't lose. A blood-red afterimage broke free from his broken body. Its features were clear and indistinct. Then, with a face full of grief and indignation, it turned around and ran away. He was already at the immortal state phenomenal success, and his soul power was unparalleled. Even if his body was dead, his soul power was still there. You broke my body and destroyed my foundation. I want revenge. I want to take revenge on you madly. I will tear you into pieces. I will kill all of your family, and not leave a chicken or a dog alive. Miyamoto Geniki's blood-red soul gritted his teeth and cursed crazily as he ran away. If the soul power escaped, it could be refined into a spirit server by absorbing the power of faith, or it could be hidden in a Dharma artifact looking for a chance to be possessed. It would not be a real death, and it would not be destroyed in body and soul. It would still have combat power, and it could even increase its combat power. You idiot, you still want revenge? Go to hell. Jiang Tian sneered and took out the soul-guiding flute, which had been refined into a soul-swallowing flute. He put it to his mouth, pinched his fingers, and blew the soulless lure. The soulless lure was a demonic sound in the cultivation world that could suppress the soul power. Combined with the soul-guiding bamboo to make the soul-swallowing flute, not to mention his soul avatar, even the soul avatar of a foundation establishment stage cultivator would be no match for it. The sound spiraled in a low voice, like a morning song, very sad and soul-stirring. The moment the soulless lure was played, the blood-red soul suddenly stopped, as if it had been immobilized by an immortal. That's impossible. The blood-red soul looked down and saw blood-red particles between its fingers and the surface of its body slowly disintegrating and spreading. In the end, they surged toward the soul-swallowing flute like streams of blood. Master Kong, please spare my life, Master Kong, I won't take revenge anymore. I'm willing to be your slave, as long as you spare my soul. Kang Tae-chu, you're too cruel. I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. No matter how Miyamoto Geniki's soul struggled, begged, and threatened, it was useless. He watched in despair as the blood-red particles disintegrated and flowed, and were continuously devoured by the soul-swallowing flute. Hee, still threatening? Your soul has been devoured by me. Do you still have a chance to become a ghost? Jiang Tian snorted and blew the soulless lure, and a surging Dharma power swept over. In just a minute, this peerless immortal state overlord who had dominated Japan for decades and stood at the top of Japan, completely disappeared from this world. Not even a drop of his soul was left behind. Everyone was dumbfounded and felt a chill in their hearts. His body and soul had been destroyed. This was the complete destruction of his body and soul. Kang Tae-chu's methods were too terrifying, too terrifying. Kang Tae-chu won. Master Kong is mighty and domineering. Countless figures in Hua Xia's martial arts world cheered and felt elated. Master Kong has never been defeated since his debut. He has never met a worthy opponent. How can an old man who cooks be a match for our Master Kong? Many members of the Heavenly Alliance yelled excitedly, their faces full of glory as they shared the honor. He didn't let us down. With such cultivation, I'm afraid that not many people in the hidden sects can defeat him. Taoist Master Qingmu, Zhuazimu, and the other overlords of the hidden sects and semi-hidden sects were in awe. My brother Chu is awesome. He will dominate Japan and be invincible. Dugu Xiao laughed wildly and kept somersaulting. So this is my husband. Even Zhao Xueqing had a proud look on her face. She felt proud of her husband. Most of the overlords in Huaxia were excited and happy, and their respect for Jiang Tian had deepened. Japan and Huaxia's martial arts world had been in conflict for a long time. Now that Jiang Tian had killed Miyamoto Genichi, the most powerful man in the Japanese martial arts world, it was a significant event. Everyone felt proud and elated. The strength that Jiang Tian is displaying right now is probably at the peak of the divine realm. He's not far away from the legendary human immortal. Yi Zhantian's eyes were full of excitement. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and his face became serious. If so, his father's chances of winning the battle with Jiang Tian in 3 years would be greatly reduced. How am I supposed to stop this contest? It must be known that the battle between masters at this level was too dangerous. A slight mistake would result in casualties. The death of any one of them would be a great loss to the martial arts world of Huaxia. Many powerful figures from the dark world looked at the figure that was slowly descending from the sky and shivered. They were filled with regret. In their eyes, Miyamoto Genichi was one of the most powerful creatures in this world. Even Zeus would only have a 70% chance of winning. But now, he was killed by Kang Taechu. Didn't that mean that Kang Taechu was invincible in this world? They regretted it so much. When the news of Kang Taechu's death on the Great East Asia came, why were they so impulsive, brainless, and idiotic to go to Jinling to make trouble? Now, Jiang Taichu was still alive, not to mention that he had lost many soldiers and was beaten badly by the Heavenly Alliance. If they were targeted by Kang Taechu, how could they survive in the future? They would be killed in minutes. He can really devour mind power like the legends say. This is too scary. I'm afraid that even the 3 over-gods can't kill him. Perhaps only if all 6 chief gods attack together will we have a chance of killing him. Artemis's pretty face became serious as if she was facing a great enemy. Her evaluation of Jiang Tian was renewed again. She recalled the details of the battle between Jiang Tian and Miyamoto Genichi and planned to report it to Zeus in detail to make a more accurate assessment of his combat power. This is the strength of the Grand Master of Singapore. It seems that no one in East Asia can defeat him. The Red Boat Mage's face was flushed with excitement and joy. In history, Singapore had been invaded by East Asia many times and hated the East Asians to the core. Now, they were also very happy. Master, you are so powerful. You defeated East Asia. Before this, I thought that the chances of victory were slim. In Tanjuan's faction, Li Jinju's clear and beautiful eyes behind the sunglasses flickered with the light of joy. She looked at the tall and dignified figure with reverence. More than half of the East Asian powerhouses have been killed in this battle. I'm afraid they won't be able to be domineering and arrogant in the future. The old priest of the mysterious tribe in South America sighed in a hoarse voice, his face full of shock. In fact, the powerhouses from all over the world were shocked, in disbelief, bewilderment, and uneasiness. They bowed slightly to show their friendliness and respect to this almost invincible powerhouse. Chapter 448. Whoosh whoosh. Jiang Tian floated to the ground. His moon-white robe was undamaged and unstained by dust. This also showed that he had not exerted his full strength in the battle and still had a protective aura. Otherwise, his robe would have been torn apart. Realizing this, many powerhouses became even more respectful. After this battle, Master Kong will probably completely suppress East Asia and be almost invincible in the world. Congratulations, Master Kong. In the Blue Storm team, the professor drove his wheelchair forward and cupped his hands to congratulate Jiang Tian, making the most important footnote for the far-reaching impact of this battle. Invincible in East Asia. Yes, his might shook Hua Xia, the Chinese of Singapore will submit, and the Tanjun faction will be under his control. In this battle, he defeated the number one in East Asia and is invincible in East Asia. Hearing this, all the powerhouses in the world were shocked. They looked at Jiang Tian with more respect and fear. Congratulations, Master Kong. Artemis, Red Boat Mage, Li Jinju, the old priest from South America, and many other powerhouses, no matter what they thought, lowered their heads to show their respect. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, glanced at the powerhouses, and said indifferently, I crossed East Asia and fought many bloody battles, not because I like to kill, but because the Cherry Blossom Society has repeatedly invaded Hua Xia. The powerhouses of Hua Xia never cause trouble, but they are not afraid of trouble. His voice gradually became cold and solemn. I hope that everyone will not cause trouble in Hua Xia. Those who violate this rule will be killed without mercy. Yes, we obey Master Kang's decree. Many powerhouses heard this and their bodies suddenly trembled, and they hurriedly bowed and agreed. In the future, don't provoke Hua Xia anymore. The farther the better. Not to mention that Hua Xia has Yi Zhantian and the experts of the hidden sect, just Kang Te-Chu alone is enough to kill us. Many powerhouses of the dark world were anxious, afraid that Jiang Tian would be annoyed and kill them all in one breath. Fortunately, Jiang Tian's current target was only East Asia, and he was not interested in dealing with them. After that, Jiang Tian glanced at the Japanese camp led by Sasaki Haisha and slowly walked over. When they saw that Miyamoto Genichi had been killed, many Japanese overlords were devastated. Shock, fear, uneasiness, despair, regret, and many other emotions swirled in their hearts, tormenting them. Every single one of them felt a chill run down their spines from head to toe. Their faces were as pale as paper, and they shivered like a group of quails in the cold wind. They shivered with their heads lowered and didn't dare meet Jiang Tian's gaze. This was Miyamoto Genichi, the number one person in Japan. Even he had been killed by Master Kong in body and soul. Japan no longer had any trump cards, and no one could be a match for him. What would happen to Japan in the future? What if Kang Te-Chu wanted to kill everyone? He was at the mercy of others. They were really regretful. They had been too arrogant in the past and had repeatedly offended Hua Xia, treating Hua Xia as if no one was there. Then, the sleeping dragon had awakened and the sleeping lion had roared. They finally knew how powerful Hua Xia's martial arts was. Kang Te-Chu was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Seeing Jiang Tian walk over, the group of people was uneasy and their heads almost reached their crotch. Only Sasaki Haisha and the other overlords raised their heads and glared at Jiang Tian, their eyes full of anger. Sasaki Haisha was wearing a white robe and holding a cold moon in her hand. Her face was as beautiful as a painting and she looked valiant. Today, I killed Gong Xiui. You Cherry Blossom Society bastards, do you submit? Jiang Tian asked indifferently. Overlords of East Asia follow the spirit of samurai. A warrior can be killed, but not humiliated. The others were uneasy and speechless. However, Sasaki Haisha raised her cold and beautiful face, glaring at Jiang Tian with resentment and said proudly. What the fuck? Don't humiliate your sister. Aunt. I will beat you to the ground. I will humiliate you. What can you do to me? Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and suddenly slapped down with his palm. Boom! With a loud bang, the void shook. A giant golden palm about 3 meters long fell from the sky like a Buddha slapping down the 5-finger mountain. You! With a swish, a cold light flashed and Sasaki Haisha unsheathed her cold moon blade. But before she could make a move, the cold moon blade was knocked out of her hand by the pressure of the golden palm. Kang Tae-chu. I won't kneel. Suddenly, Sasaki Kaisha felt as if Mount Fuji was pressing on his body. His face turned red, and he tried to resist. He struggled hard, but the bones all over his body made strange cracking sounds. It seemed that he would be crushed into powder in the next moment. Kneel down. Jiang Tian shouted calmly as his palm continued to press down. Sasaki Haisha struggled and cursed, but it was useless. She only lasted for 3 seconds before her knees went soft. She knelt on the ground and then lay on the ground like a frog, unable to move. I hate that stinky face. Can't be humiliated. I will humiliate you. Rub, rub, rub again. Jiang Tian smirked and moved his palm back and forth. Sasaki Haisha was like a rubber man, constantly rolling and deforming under the rubbing of the golden palm. Her clothes were torn, revealing her snow-white skin. Her pretty face was in close contact with the dirty and hard ground again and again. Her face and hair were disheveled. He is really rubbing on the ground. Seeing this, everyone was speechless, but Dugu Xiao cheered excitedly. The former president of the Sakura Society was killed, and the new president, Sasaki Haisha, was rubbed by Jiang Tian. The Sakura Society was a big joke, and they couldn't raise their heads. Kang Tae-chu, you bully too much. Next to him, Kawasaki Yi, a disciple of Miyamoto Genichi, couldn't stand it anymore. With a roar, he pulled out his katana and rushed toward Jiang Tian. A katana slashed down, and a sharp katana swept out, like the Milky Way falling from the 9th heaven, heading toward Jiang Tian. Idiot! If you want to die, then die. Jiang Tian didn't look at it, just waved his sleeve. With a loud bang, a 7th metal true essence surged like a tide, and the stormy waves pushed out, containing a majestic force. Wherever it passed, the rocks flew, people were overturned, and a 10-meter-long and 1-meter-wide friction mark appeared on the ground, as if it had been pushed by a bulldozer. Kawasaki Yi, who was the first to be hit, suddenly stagnated, and the katana made of steel collapsed into pieces, and then it was as if it had been hit by a high-speed train. Amidst the splattering blood arrows, he was blasted into pieces with a bang, turning into pieces of corpse that fell to the ground. He was deader than dead. Too powerful. It's terrible. The audience was shocked, and everyone was stunned. They all gasped and were scared out of their wits. As a disciple of Miyamoto Genichi, although Kawasaki Yi was slightly inferior to Momoi Aitaro and Sasaki Haisha, he was also ranked among the great teachers of kendo. In terms of kendo, he could be ranked in the top 10 in Japan, but he was smashed into pieces by Jiang Tian. We've been fighting for so long. Are you convinced? Jiang Tian looked at Sasaki Kaisha and asked mockingly. I'm convinced. Sasaki Haisha's face was full of humiliation and resentment, but in the end, he sighed deeply, shed tears of grievance, bowed his head and admitted defeat. That's good, I'll spare your life. You can't humiliate me. Bah! A group of ants, I can humiliate you however I want. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and raised his palm. Puff! Sasaki Haisha struggled to stand up. Hearing those words, she was so angry that she vomited blood and almost fell to the ground again. As a genius in the way of the sword, she had always been conceited. Now that she had been appointed as the president of the Cherry Blossom Society, she even shouldered the dignity of the East Ocean. Yet now, she had been publicly trampled on by Jiang Tian, forced to admit defeat before the eyes of the world's experts, and repeatedly humiliated. This was unacceptable to her, and her lungs almost exploded from anger. She really didn't want to admit defeat, but if she didn't, she would die. Under Jiang Tian's claws, she felt like a worm. Moreover, she knew that if Jiang Tian wanted to kill her, no one could save her. No one present was a match for Jiang Tian. Although his words are unpleasant, he's right. We are really like ants in his hands. What kind of demon is he? Looking at Jiang Tian's back, Sasaki Haisha felt that he was incomparably tall and powerful. She was in despair and couldn't say a word. You were yelling happily just now. You should die too. Jiang Tian glanced coldly at Sun Zhengyi in the crowd and directly hit the air with his finger. Boom. This time, Sun Zhengyi was just a mortal. How could he withstand it? It was as if he had been shot in the chest by an armor-piercing bullet from a sniper rifle. Half of his body exploded, and he couldn't be more dead. Plop. Plop. Mitsui Takori, Fuji Isai, and many other Japanese tycoons and politicians knelt on the ground in fear, kowtowing and begging for mercy. As for Sasaki Haisha and other strong people who were known as the Guardians of Japan, they just stood there trembling like quails in the cold wind. They didn't even dare to fart or show the slightest anger when they saw that he was killed. Sasaki Haisha, wait for me. Don't run around. I have something to ask you later. Jiang Tian said and flew towards Xiao Xueqing, the Heavenly Alliance, Tan Jun's faction, and the Singapore Chinese Society. Leader. Master Kong. Master. President. Everyone hurried to greet him with joy. Everyone felt proud, and their blood was boiling. Jiang Tian's battle had really shocked Japan. He was invincible in East Asia. Who would dare to provoke the Heavenly Alliance or any of Master Kang's forces in the future? Even Xiao Xueqing, who was indifferent, couldn't help but look at Jiang Tian with tenderness and admiration. This is my husband. He's the pride of my life. He's my support that will never collapse. Maybe, I should have a child and take care of my husband and children. With my current status, what else can I ask for? She sent a message to Jiang Tian with her divine sense. Jiang Tian hesitated for a moment and then nodded uncharacteristically. Okay, wait for me to return home and make a baby. Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd and suddenly thought of something. He said, Tan Jun and the Chinese Society, join the Heavenly Alliance. You can discuss how to integrate on the way. We've been thinking about this for a long time. Thank you, Master Kong, for your permission. Master Hongchan and Li Jinju bowed to express their gratitude. Hua Qingtian also nodded. The two major organizations and the Heavenly Alliance were one. They could exchange information, share resources, and double their strength. After all, the Heavenly Alliance had many transcendent masters. After the integration, even without Master Kong, the Heavenly Alliance would still be the most powerful organization in East Asia. Suddenly, Yi Zhantian hurried over and said with a serious face, Brother Jiang, everyone, the Long Formation Intelligence Department has analyzed the next move of the Japanese Ministry of Defense. The results are out. What? Jiang Tian turned around and asked. The current Prime Minister of the Japanese Cabinet and the Secretary of the Ministry of Defense are well-known far-right and hawkish figures in Japanese politics. We have reason to believe that they are likely to mobilize the self-defense forces and wipe out all the overlords in Huaxia. As soon as Yi Zhantian's words came out, the crowd fell silent. Everyone's face turned pale and they were extremely anxious. Chapter 449. Military. That was the most terrifying force on Earth. No immortal state cultivator could compete with them. In history, even immortal state warriors could only run away when they encountered a modern army equipped with large-scale thermal weapons. They didn't dare to fight head-on. After all, this was an era of rapid technological advancement. New weapons were emerging one after another with terrifying lethality. Isn't this against the rules of martial arts? That's despicable. Hua Qingtian frowned and scolded. When did the Japanese ever talk about rules? Our top priority now is to leave Japan as soon as possible. Yi Zhantian said with a frown. Master Hongfun quickly said, Everyone, we came here on the presidential plane of Singapore. The Japanese government would not dare to detain us. Please follow us and leave. My plane is also from the South Korean government. I can send all of you back to Huaxia. I don't think the Japanese would dare to do anything to us. Li Jinju added. That's great. Master Kong, let's go. Yi Zhantian's eyes lit up and he nodded. He heaved a sigh of relief. If the Japanese were to detain the presidential plane of another country, it would cause an international dispute. They would not dare to do so. If Master Kong did not have friends all over the world, we would be in deep trouble. Taoist Master Qingmu, Zuazimu, and the other martial artists who were not members of the Heaven Alliance were grateful. If the Japanese self-defense forces were to attack them, they would not have the strength and courage to fight back. Jiang Tian had saved their lives. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian shook his head and said, I still have some things to do. I have to stay for 3 days. Are you going to fight the military? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Japanese self-defense forces were about to be deployed. The best strategy was to run. If Qin Xiaobei did not leave now, he would be courting death. What? Yi Zhantian panicked. Suddenly, he realized something and frowned. Brother, are you going to rob the treasure vault of the Cherry Blossom Society? Yes. If I kill the monsters and don't get any equipment, I would be in big trouble. Jiang Tian's words left everyone speechless. Chao Jinjia said angrily, Master Kong, do you want to die? That's the army we're talking about. It's too dangerous. Although she worshipped Jiang Tian, she couldn't stand Jiang Tian's arrogant attitude. This behavior was tantamount to courting death. That's right. What cultivation resources do you need? Our long formation can provide you with them. You can't take such a risk. Yi Zhantian said anxiously. Brother Jiang, now is not the time to snatch cultivation resources. Now that no one in East Asia is your match, why don't you go back to China first, then find a chance to sneak back and catch them off guard? Taoist Master Qingmu also advised. I have made up my mind. Jiang Tian's tone was indifferent, and his expression was calm. He had planted a seed of joy in the hearts of many Japanese experts, officials, and tycoons. These people were equivalent to hostages. If the Japanese self-defense forces dared to make a move, they would have to pay the price in blood. Seeing this, everyone was helpless and gave up on persuading him. If Jiang Tian was unwilling to leave, they couldn't possibly tie him up and bring him back. Who would have the ability to do so? Alliance leader, we are willing to fight side by side with you. The people of the Heaven Alliance were even more enthusiastic. They took the initiative to volunteer to stay in East Asia and fight with Jiang Tian. No, all of you go back and preserve your strength. I have a way to deal with this. Jiang Tian ordered. No one dared to disobey. Among these people, except for his beloved wife Qing'er, none of them had the strength to fight against an army. They would only be cannon fodder if they went. It was meaningless and unnecessary. Hubby, I will go to the Prime Minister's official residence in the East Asia cabinet now. Zhao Xueqing patted the head of Qitian, who was squatting on her shoulder, and looked at Jiang Tian tenderly. I'm sorry to let you take the risk. Jiang Tian held her little hand and squeezed it gently. He was a little apologetic. We have been husband and wife for so long. Don't be so courteous. Qing'er smiled coquettishly. She reached out her hand and caressed Jiang Tian's face. She said softly, when husband and wife are of one heart, they can cut through gold. If I don't help you, who will? Besides, don't worry. I've observed their defense. They won't be able to stop me. You must be careful. If you can't beat them, run. I naturally have a way to escape. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Let heaven's equal monkey follow you. Zhao Xueqing nodded and said softly, this naughty monkey has been cultivating in the villa every day. Its current cultivation is comparable to a half-step to divine realm. Moreover, it has immense strength and is suitable for direct combat. Let's split up. When we return to China, we will make a baby. Jiang Tian nodded and waved his hand. Qitian laughed weirdly and jumped onto his shoulder. You bad guy. Zhao Xueqing's face turned red. She rolled her eyes at him, her eyes filled with tenderness. Even though Zhao Xueqing's cultivation was heaven-defying, she was still like a 16-year-old girl when it came to matters between men and women. Jiang Tian smiled and saluted everyone. Then, he jumped in front of Sasaki Kaisha and said coldly, "Come with me." Kang Teichu won. He killed Miyamoto Geniki on Mount Fuji. In the information age, the news reached Huaxia in just a few hours. The whole world of cultivation was shocked. Everyone could not believe it at first. Kang Teichu had defeated Wang Chongyan, Xiao Bin, and Momoyo Yutaro. Although Wang Chongyan was the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, Singapore was not a superpower. He was only a half-step to divine realm. His actual cultivation was still in the Grandmaster level. Although Xiao Bin had the backing of a superpower, he could not be compared to Miyamoto Geniki. Xiao Bin and Yi Tianren were of the same generation. Miyamoto Geniki had fought with Yi Tianren before. He was an immortal state master of the older generation, and he was at the God realm culmination. However, Kang Teichu defeated him, which was really shocking. When many details of the battle on Mount Fuji came out, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. Kang Teichu was really powerful. In this battle, he broke the mountain and caused the volcano to erupt. Was he still a human being? He was like a god. The point was that it involved national hatred. Wang Chongyan and Xiao Bin were traitors and hostile forces. But in terms of evil, they were still not comparable to Miyamoto Geniki of the Sakura Society. Since the invasion of the Eight-Nation Alliance, for a century, after the War of Warlords, the Republic of China, the Anti-Japanese War, and even after the founding of the country, the Sakura Society had been wreaking havoc in Huaxia, carrying out destructive and subversive activities and killing countless masters in Huaxia. It could be said that the martial arts world in Huaxia hated them to the core. There was a blood feud and they couldn't wait to crush their bones and scatter their ashes to vent their hatred. For a time, this earth-shattering news was spread in the secluded sects such as the Shinong School and the Langyi Academy, the Hua family, the Zhao family, the Zhang family, and the Tang sect in Chuan. In the Changbai Mountain in the northeast, endless falling trees rustled. The autumn was very bleak. Sun's mother, Master Kang avenged you. He killed Ryutaro Momoi, the president of the Sakura Society, and Miyamoto Geniki of the Kendo sect. In front of a grave, Cheng Ming and his son Cheng Yi were burning incense and offering sacrifices to his wife who had died tragically in the hands of the East Asians. They opened a bottle of old northeastern wine and poured it on the ground. Mother, we have avenged you. You should rest in peace in the netherworld. Cheng Yi threw himself in front of the tombstone and wailed. Do you know? The one who avenged you was Jiang Tian. He always ate the buns you made. Now, he has become a martial arts grandmaster. These were tears of joy and relief. The big stone that had been pressing on the hearts of the Qing family's father and son was finally removed. If the Sakura Society had not been destroyed, they would never have been able to face their dead relatives and would have been tortured by hatred and guilt for the rest of their lives. In the photo inlaid on the tombstone, the woman with a gentle smile was as light as a chrysanthemum. She was a perfect match for the chrysanthemums that were silently blooming around her. Those chrysanthemums trembled and swayed in the breeze, as if the spirit in heaven could hear the prayers of her husband and child. It was Master Kang who took us in. It was Master Kang who avenged your mother and the Qing family. When they went down the mountain, Cheng Ming said earnestly, we will never be able to repay Master Kang's great kindness to us in this lifetime. Well, from now on, my life belongs to Jiang Tian. We will guard the Jiang family firmly. We will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Cheng Yi wiped away the tears on his face. His resolute face became even more solemn. His reddened eyes flashed with determination. At this moment, even if he had to die for Jiang Tian, he wouldn't hesitate. This scene was still happening in many places in Huaxia. They paid their respects to their old friends who had died at the hands of the Sakura Society and remembered Master Kang's kindness. At the villa on Mount Fulong, Shen Mange was unhappy. She frowned and went out to take a look. She was restless. Ghost Kick saw this and shook his head with a sigh. The little girl really wanted to go to Japan to watch the battle but was forced to stay by her mistress. She had been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Suddenly, Shen Mange's phone rang. She saw that it was Suazimu calling. When she picked up, she immediately laughed and said, "Haha, Master Kang won." Ghost Kick was so excited that he did not know what to say. He rubbed his hands and said, "Great news, great news. We must celebrate with a drink. I want the servants to cook." Outside the door, Huang Linger, who was sitting in the middle of the herb field, heard their conversation. A sweet smile appeared on her clear and pretty face, as if she was suddenly relieved. Chapter 450. In the CEO's office of the Medicine King Group. Yizue's hair was tied up in a bun, and she was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. She was in a meeting with a group of executives, but she looked a little out of it. Suddenly, she received a phone call. When she put down the phone, she felt energized as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Jinlin City, Linzhou City, Yanjin, many people who had been paying attention to the battle were shocked when they heard the news. Then, they heaved a sigh of relief. The impact of this battle was too far-reaching. Kang Taechu did not represent himself, his family, or an organization. He represented the entire martial arts community in Huaxia. After all, after he killed Xiao Bin, he was regarded as the most powerful martial artist in Huaxia. If he had lost this battle, the Sakura Society and the other overlords in Huaxia would have thought that he was invincible. They would probably come to Huaxia to commit crimes again. Now that Japan's sword god had been killed by Jiang Tian, it meant that the entire Japanese overlord world was under Kang Taechu's feet. Who would dare to be arrogant anymore? Moreover, the 6 Shikigamis had fallen and the sword sage Ryutaro Momoi and the other experts had been killed. The Japanese cultivation world had suffered great losses and lost half of their forces. Their vitality was greatly damaged and they couldn't even protect themselves. They no longer had the capital to wreak havoc in Huaxia. In the base of the long formation in Yanjin. Good, good, good. The impact of this battle is far greater than the battle in Singapore. Chao Shixiang slammed the table and stood up after receiving the secret report. He laughed and said, "Beta Sheng is a cunning guy. I didn't expect that he would shoot himself in the foot. Let's see if he still dares to covet the position of the Long Formation's leader." Red Sparrow smiled and said, "Elder Chao, I heard that Beta Sheng smashed 3 antique porcelain vases after receiving the news. It seems that he's really angry. Dragon Head Yi and many other overlords have left the country safely on private planes from Singapore and South Korea, but Kang Taechu is still in Japan." Black Tortoise said with a complicated expression. "Why?" Chao Shixiang was shocked. "Didn't you do an assessment? Japanese self-defense forces. He said that since we've killed monsters, we should pick up the equipment. Even Dragon Head Yi couldn't stop him." Black Tortoise said helplessly. "Sigh, I really don't know what to do with this kid." Chao Shixiang sighed at Jiang Tian's courage and bravery. At the same time, he was also worried. Knitting his brows, he ordered, "Pay close attention to this matter and inform the Japanese embassy. He is the guardian of our Huaxia. We can't let anything happen to him." After all, at Jiang Tian's level, his destructive power was too shocking. He was like the Dongfeng missile, super fighter jets, or aircraft carriers. He was enough to be promoted to a strategic level and was highly valued by a country or army. He could not be lost. Linzhou, Hidden Dragon Villa. Tang Guizhou quickly walked into a quiet room and said with a smile, "Lass, great news. Your master defeated Miyamoto Genichi." What's so strange about that? Humph. Tang Linglong packed her luggage and did not seem surprised. Then, she shook her head in disdain and said, "He's just an old man who cooks. He can't even lift his sword. How can he be my master's opponent? He's a godlike man." "That makes sense." Tang Guizhu laughed and nodded. Then, he suddenly asked in surprise, "Linglong, why are you packing your luggage?" "Grandpa, I'm going to travel." Tang Linglong looked up and carried her backpack on her shoulder. "Travel? What are you going to do?" Tang Guizhu asked in surprise. "Firstly, to improve my cultivation. Secondly, to find heavenly materials and earthly treasures for my master's cultivation. I've already mastered the Howren body refining art and the 13 strange sword techniques that my master taught me. It's hard for me to improve if I stay at home," Tang Linglong said firmly. "And I heard that there are some unknown places in Huaxia called the Yin sect. I should be able to find something." "Linglong, Jianghu is dangerous. If you want cultivation resources, your master has a lot of them. Why would he let you use them? If you want cultivation methods, your master has a lot of them. Why do you have to do this?" Tang Guizhu anxiously advised. "Grandpa, don't worry about me. I'm now at Qi refining stage 2, which is equivalent to a transcendent grandmaster." Tang Linglong smiled. "I want to be a woman who can stand shoulder to shoulder with my master. I want to be a woman who is worthy of him. Then, I can't live under his protection forever. I've already lost my position in the army. Without an official position, I'm free to walk my own path." Sigh. Tang Guizhu could only sigh helplessly. She was no longer the little girl she used to be. "Grandpa, I'm leaving." Tang Linglong carried her backpack and walked out of the crouching Dragon Mountain Resort without looking back. She left Tang Guizhu with a lonely and determined back view. Not only Huaxia, the impact of this battle had spread all over the world, even beyond Japan and Huaxia. When Li Jianxi of South Korea's Star Moon Group heard the news, he immediately called for a family meeting to further strengthen the cooperation with Medicine King Group and Master Kang's companies. Now, Dayu Pharmaceutical had become Medicine King Group's processing plant, and Medicine King Group's products were sold all over South Korea. Li Jianxi's influence in South Korea was no less than the president of a country. A group of luxury companies led by Medicine King Group, including the Jiang family, Su family, Bai family, Tai family, Tang family, Lin Zhou's Tang family, Long family, and Haizhou's Yi family, would visit South Korea in a few days to further expand their market. This is not only the glory of Master Kong, but also the glory of the Chinese people in Singapore. This is so exciting. In Singapore, President Lee Hsien-loong was overjoyed when he heard the news. He immediately announced a grand celebration. During the celebration, the names of Kong Taechu and Master Kong were mentioned again and again. "Damn, Kong Taechu is not dead, and he even won. He even killed the origin of Kenshin Gong. Is he going to make me live on Big Turtle Island for the rest of my life?" In Big Circle, Sixth Old Man Fan had just moved to the casino in Las Vegas. He had not even warmed his seat when he heard the news. He immediately ran to the airport and took a private plane back to Big Turtle Island. According to witnesses, Sixth Master Fan was panting heavily from running. He had even lost one of his iconic old Beijing cloth shoes. He was like a rabbit being chased by a wolf, running as fast as Lu Xiang. In the United States, the professor led many observers from Blue Storm back to the secret base at Area 51. The leader of Blue Storm immediately gathered all the members in one place and held an emergency meeting. Many generals from the Pentagon also attended the meeting. A high-ranking general's face was very serious after he heard the report. He scanned the crowd and said in a deep voice, "The rise of Kong Taechu poses a challenge to us. If a god-level expert were to appear in a big city, how would we be able to launch an effective attack against them without causing a large number of innocent citizens to be injured or killed, and without nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction being able to be used?" On the dark web, discussions about Jiang Taichu were once again rampant, and posts flooded the screen. Some time ago, the Observer, who had been slapped in the face by the news of Jiang Taichu's death, was once again regarded as a standard. The Observer had also posted a few posts before, claiming that Kang Taichu could not have died, but they quickly disappeared. After all, the Japanese Prime Minister had come out to speak, and there were even photos of the corpse. Who would believe the Observer's analysis? But this time, everyone once again discovered that the Observer's insight was truly terrifying. It was simply a flawless plan. The Observer is really wise. Half a year ago, he predicted that Kang Taichu would sweep through Japan. Now that I've seen it, it's true. Someone exclaimed. The Observer also reminded the butterfly skeleton and the others not to provoke Kang Taichu and Hua Xia, but they didn't listen. They must be regretting it now. Some fans of the Observer mocked. The butterfly skeleton and other organizations that have a grudge against Jiang Tian all stop talking. They can no longer be arrogant and can only send a string of crying emojis. How powerful is Kang Taichu now? Is he at the immortal state phenomenal success or the perfected one? How many people on this planet are his opponents? Zeus, the kindred, or the top 10 masters on the power rankings? Someone asked. As soon as this question was asked, everyone immediately had their own opinions and started to discuss it all at once. The argument was so intense that it couldn't be stopped. Miyamoto Genichi is said to be at the immortal state phenomenal success, but he's too old. I'm afraid his combat power has weakened. Kang Taichu killed him, but it can't prove that he's at the immortal state phenomenal success. He might not even be at the immortal state level. Some people were not optimistic about Kang Taichu's power. You're talking shit. Miyamoto Genichi broke through to the immortal state phenomenal success at the last moment. His spirit, body, and aura combined. He even cut off the sword peak of Mount Fuji and made the volcano erupt. Kang Taichu can kill him. If he's not at the immortal state phenomenal success, then what is he? He might even be at his peak state. Some people supported Kang Taichu. Miyamoto Genichi is a master in the Japanese cultivation world. The means he used may be ninjutsu. Some people were not convinced. Even if Kang Taichu is at the immortal state, he may not be a match for Zeus. Zeus is the master of the Temple of Gods. Someone said. The Observer, come out. What is Kang Taichu's combat power now? Everyone quarreled and refused to accept each other, but they couldn't come to a conclusion. They could only call the Observer out. Kang Taichu's combat power is definitely at the peak of the immortal state, or even above it. The Observer might be a little angry because of everyone's quarrel some time ago. He didn't show up until half an hour later. Above the immortal state. What's that? However, as soon as the words came out, everyone present was stunned again. As expected of the Observer's style. Maybe you don't know that there are more powerful overlords above the immortal state, but they are very rare. It is said that in the long history of mankind, only a few hundred people have reached it. So, few people know about it. The Observer spoke tirelessly. The cultivators in Hua Xia are called immortals. The cultivators in the Temple of Gods are called true gods, venerables, and saints. More people call them myths. They are called different names, but the meaning is the same. They are no longer human beings. They belong to the real gods. Jiang Taichu has become a real deity. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. They were dumbfounded. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.